Well, why don't I start out with the announcements and all that? So good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Town of Greenwich Planning and Zoning Commission to a hearing being held virtually tonight. Today is Tuesday, April 4th, 2023. This evening, we have one item that has been withdrawn from our agenda. It is number 6, Verdad Real Estate for a final site plan and special permit to construct a single-story restaurant with 53 indoor seats and 24 outdoor at 1205 East Putnam Avenue in the LB zone. You all would know that as the Shake Shack application, and that has been withdrawn. Also, Mr. Lowe will be absent tonight. The seated alternate is Bob Barilak. However, we also have Mary Jenkins sitting in some of the time, and I'll announce that with each application, and Bob, especially when Bob steps out to attend another meeting. For now, why don't we see, do you see Peter Levy yet?
No, you're not.
All right. Okay, well, hopefully he'll raise his hand when he comes in. So for now, I'd like to make a motion that we change the order of the agenda and that we move item 9B to be the first item that we consider this evening. Could I have a second for that?
Second.
Mr. Barilak has seconded, and for this, all of us are seated. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of us are seated, including Mr. Barilak and Ms. Jenkins. Bob Barilak has seconded. Ms. Jenkins, how do you vote?
Aye.
Barilak?
Aye.
Yeski?
Aye.
McRae?
Aye.
Albin is also aye, and with that, the motion passes, and we will now consider Amfair LLC for a request to extend the Mylar filing for an additional 90 days. This is for a re-subdivision of at 1 Binney Place, 1 Binney Lane, that we approved a month ago. Right.
I think it was earlier than that, maybe January.
And I believe Mr. Hegney is representing the applicant.
No, I think it's Mr. Cesario.
Okay. There it is. Mr. Cesario, if you're representing the applicant, would you raise your hand if you are the applicant? Peter, we already seated Bob, okay, because we were waiting. All right, thank you, Mr. Cesario. We are moving you in. So this will just take us a second and then we'll seat you. Hello, Mr. Cesario. And you just need to unmute and then you're ready to go.
Thank you so much. And again, I appreciate the consideration of the board on that motion that you
Sure.
accepted. So as was made mention in January, there was an approval of this re-subdivision. Fundamentally, the purpose was to subdivide an existing lot into 2 lots, one of which would be used for open space. As part of the approval process, there was a requirement that there be a demarcation of this open space with sunken boulders. Given the weather conditions, that work had to be delayed. It has recently concluded. We're getting the surveyor out to mark those boulders onto the Mylar, and we expect to file this Mylar probably in the next 30 to 45 days. So again, the nature of the request was just to extend the time period because of the extended duration in order to put that demarcation boulders in the site.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Well, seeing no questions, does anybody object to closing this application at this time?
No.
All righty. Mr. McRae, we would happily, and the item is now closed. And Mr. McRae, we would happily entertain a motion.
Okay. This is 1 Binney Lane, PLPZ 2022-507. Applicant is requesting a 90-day extension to prepare and file the subdivision record map as required per section 6279 of the town subdivision regulations. Motion to approve the request for extension, noting the following. All conditions of the original January 10th, 23 approval shall be continued, and the additional extension of time to complete the filing will be on or before July 2nd, 2023.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Barilak has seconded. Ms. Jenkins, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Yeski,
Aye.
Mr. Barilak,
Aye.
Mr. McRae?
Aye.
Albin is also aye, and with that, the motion passes 5-0. That's it, Mr. Cesario, you're done. I'm just saying to you again, if you would like the First Selectman's Office to recognize the creation of the open space, just reach out to Patrick and let him know. And we will do what we can.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the
Thank you, sir.
consideration.
All righty. So we now move to the decisions we were going to make. And for that, Ms. Cullen, if you would kindly take the record. We're going to have two decisions. One is the zoning text amendment proposed for the application. It is number 1A, and then a final site plan for 177 Hamilton LLC, which is an 830G application. Seated for this are Albin, McRae, Levy, and Mr. Yeski, and Jenkins for Mr. Lowe.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, Albin, McRae, Levy, Jenkins, and Yeski are seated on this application. The first item then is the zoning text amendment, which would extend the setback in the LBR2 by 5 feet. I mean, reduce it by 5 feet. Does anybody wish to comment on this application? Wow, does anybody want to discuss?
Yeah, do you want to actually make a motion prior to the discussion?
Sure. Why don't we do that? If you're ready to make a motion, does anybody mind? And we'll put a motion out and see what we think of it and how we vote. Sounds like a plan. Okay, Mr. McRae, give it a shot.
Okay, this would be text amendment, street side yards, LBR2 zones, PLPZ 2023-033. The amendment seeks to modify Division 10 supplementary area and height regulations, Section 6132E, yard requirements on corner lots pursuant to Section 622 of the Building Zone Regulations and Section 83 of the Connecticut General Statutes. The commission finds that Westcog issued comments dated 12/2/22 indicating this matter is of local interest. The proposed amendment will affect a significant number of properties located in the LBR2 all across the town. A goal of the LBR zones is to protect and encourage neighborhood and oriented retail development. The LBR zones provide a central but limited concentration of retail goods, personal services, and convenient locations to meet the frequent recurring needs of nearby residents. The intent of this regulation is to provide direction, which is tailored to the requirements of the neighborhoods, give a priority to neighborhoods serving activities, govern the distribution and concentration of uses so as to avoid proliferation of ground floor non-retail uses, which may threaten the balance and a variety of activities and viability of the retail area's retail function. Discourage a significant reduction of the total number of available storefront businesses or a break in storefront continuity within a neighborhood or a commercial district. And an additional goal is to encourage appropriate housing so as to meet the diverse housing needs of the town of residents, as well as provide daytime market that supports and strengthens the business community. The LBR zones are not solely dependent on areas larger than the neighborhood districts that serve and do not attract a substantial part of their clientele from beyond that neighborhood. The scale, design, civic atmosphere, and uses of commercial buildings in these zones are intended to be compatible with the scale, civic atmosphere, and density of the surrounding residential neighborhoods. Their base zoning standards are also the most vulnerable to overdevelopment, as lot sizes in these neighborhoods are also small and or legally non-conforming. Testimony has been provided concerning aspects of the 2019 POCD. The testimony speaks to the parts of guiding principle number 2, developing housing opportunities for the future. Although an additional goal is to encourage appropriate housing, it must be stated that the proposed amendment seeks to modify a first floor business zone requirement that may or may not have a residential component attached. Additional testimony was provided that the amendment supports guiding principle number 5, maintain economic viability in thriving commercial centers. As stated previously, the nature of the LBR zone is to be in scale with and retain the civic atmosphere of buildings in the zone. The requested amendment would be in conflict with the LBR intent for neighborhoods and guiding principle 1 of the POCD, as it could provide larger building footprints in any LBR2 zone across the town. The proposed amendment is out of keeping with the 2019 POCD. Therefore, a motion to deny the text amendment as proposed.
Well, okay then. I wasn't totally expecting that. So does anybody want to second that motion and then we can discuss it?
I'll second.
Second,
Okay, I think we got Mary's second was first. Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded. Does anybody have any thoughts and comments on the motion to deny the text amendment? Wow, okay. Well, I'll make a comment. I've struggled a little bit with this just because it came out of an individual applicant's proposal on an individual piece of property. And normally when we do something like this that affects across town, we laboriously study all the properties affected and we look at the impact and we decide if it's good for town as a whole, and we do it as a whole process. I feel like this is born from a very specific goal on one property. And I was uncomfortable with that because, as you guys know, there are things like that in the regulations, and we've been trying to eradicate them where some specific purpose was accommodated very narrowly. And I feel like it should always accommodate as many properties as we can, and to be consistent and not start from one property. So I was hesitating about it for that reason. Mary?
To follow up on that, I was looking at the list that was provided by the applicant in Exhibit C, and I could not see a particular pattern of those properties in those neighborhoods that seemed to call out for this as a solution. And that I think I'm saying I have the same concern that we're using 25 or 50 or 60 properties, which are not necessarily that consistent or call out for the same treatment.
And then Mr. McRae has his hand up.
I think I agree with you, Madam Chair, but as I see the number of properties, it's more than what the testimony was provided. It was narrowed down, but as I see it, in any zone, this could be applied, and it could be applied to existing properties, existing buildings, buildings that would be redeveloped, or buildings that actually would be raised to be redeveloped. So it's not just what's out there now; it's everything that could be out there at any time in the future. And I think it's one of our goals, as a planning and zoning commission, to understand it's not exactly what we do today, but let's project it out into the next 10, 15, 20 years and say, if we do this today, what does 20 years from now look like? And what are the impacts in 20 years plus? And that this would propagate for.
And
I think actually avoiding the unintended consequences.
yeah, I think that I probably won't be around to put anything on your epitaph, but I know that you always say that everything we do will probably be around for 20 to 40 years, and that we have to think about those long-range consequences. Mr. Levy?
in that light, I just felt like there was a bluntness to our regulations, and this helps kind of give a little bit more definition and options. And I thought there was a thoughtfulness in it. And that's, I appreciate the the attempt to think think that way and consider the neighborhood and give more options.
Yeah, and to that, I also thought about that, Mr. Levy, because one of the things that we heard a lot about was just that. And what we have had discussions that are not part of this application about whether this neighborhood specifically should have an overlay zone. What was it? A development district might be, is that the right term, Pat, from the statutes? That we could create a development district here for which we would make different setbacks, potentially different parking requirements. Another possibility is to do a village district, and that we look at Chickahominy and we say, how do we protect its great character and how do we enhance it moving forward? And we involve that whole community in and maybe what they need is their own overlay zone or their own development district or their own village district. There's some different options that Patrick and Katie in the past had talked to the neighborhood about. I think Katie met with, was it just Byram or was it also Chickahominy, Patrick? Unmute, because whatever you said.
Well, I don't know if we have a specific plan for Chickahominy that we.
No, we don't, but it's just, I know Katie was talking to them about the creation of I think she was talking mostly to Byram.
Well, yes, definitely Byram. Yeah.
Yeah.
If Chickahominy was in that discussion, I apologize for not remembering.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it would, but that's the real question. Should we be doing something that works for that neighborhood and enhances the flexibility of that specific neighborhood, which is what I felt was being asked, rather than impact other ones? And why this is important to think of it in the context of the whole town is because, as Nick pointed out, when we change a regulation, it's got to be consistent with the POCD and with the objectives of the POCD. Anything else, folks? I know, Dennis, you had an opportunity to listen to the transcript, but it was the meeting that you actually, as you probably saw, we talked about this a lot more at the meeting that you attended and not the one that you missed. So I know you, well, the transcript, I think you listened to the Zoom, lucky you. Anything else from anybody? No, okay. So you guys ready to vote?
Yes.
Peter Levy, you're muted. Are you ready to vote?
Yes.
All right, so the motion is then on the floor and seconded to deny this proposed zoning amendment. And I guess we can't make any findings other than what Nick was there, but can we recommend that we study doing something that we evaluate Chickahominy, what would work for Chickahominy, Patrick, in that, or do we just decide to do it separately?
I don't think it's the place to put it in the motion.
Okay.
For it.
All right, so we're just going to make ourselves the quiet promise that it's on our list of objectives. All right, Ms. Jenkins, how do you vote? This is again a motion to deny.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. McRae,
Aye.
Mr. Yeski,
Aye.
Mr. Levy,
Aye.
Albin is also aye, and with that, the motion passes 5-0. And we go to the next application, which is the site plan for it's 177 Hamilton Avenue, but the property is officially located at 15 Grand Street. This is actually, just to remind you guys, first I'm going to remind you who's seated. It's Albin, McRae, Levy, Jenkins, and Yeski. And this is, again, it was at the last meeting, as you all know, we talked about Plan A and Plan B for this application. The first proposal was all residential. The second one was residential with the commercial below. Technically, even though we denied the zoning amendment and the commercial below would be therefore not consistent with the zoning regulations and 830G doesn't speak to that, it would not be out of line of us, we think, if we decided to let them have something that didn't meet the setbacks. So the first question before you is really, which option do you want to vote on? Is that a fair way to do it, Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to pick a plan, right?
Okay.
And so,
So the first thing is, which one do you want to vote on? Mary, Nick, I don't know, somebody talk about where you're leaning and which you kind of want to make the motion on.
I think there was not enough information and study on the Plan B, if you would, the retail. I think it came in a little bit too late and seemed very incomplete to me, as there had been a lot of questions, a lot of the departmental questions that came in, actually, same thing, didn't have time to take a look at it, that kind of thing. So to me, in front of me is a residential application, including the first floor.
Okay.
So I would tend to go with that.
Okay, and that's really what's noticed. There is a mixed use concept in the notice as well, but that was the original notice, was all residential, and then it switched. Mary, any thoughts?
I concur with that. I think that most of the discussion was on the all
All residential.
Yeah.
Dennis, Peter, any
Same.
comments?
Same thing. I remember the discussion.
Okay. All right, so we will do that. And let's do the same thing. If Nick would make a motion. Nick, I would like to ask you a favor.
Mhm,
As you may recall, I was foot dragging about sewer.
mhm.
So I have been working on sewer. And if you would not make a sewer whereas, I would like to volunteer a sewer whereas when you do the motion. And
Okay, I have a sewer finding
okay, this
in
is
my
just,
notes.
okay, this is,
So I will actually put that, but you can actually, I'll
Okay.
wait for you for the whereas
Okay.
before we get into that part of it.
alrighty. Okay,
Okay, so 177 Hamilton Avenue, application PLPZ 2022-510. Applicant is requesting final site plan special permit approval to demolish an existing legally non-conforming structures and construct a 10-unit residential set-aside development containing 2 studio, 5 one-bedroom, and 3 two-bedroom units located in a 7,288 square foot property in the LBR2 zone. Whereas that housing, 30% of the proposal 10 units or 3 units would be restricted to affordable housing units. Excuse me. 1 studio would be deeded to restricted to 40 years, and families earning less than 60% of SMI. One bedroom unit would be deeded restricted to 40 years for families earning less than 60% of the SMI. And 1 two-bedroom unit deed restricted for 40 years for families earning less than 80% of the SMI. Sewer, whereas.
do you want me to jump in?
Yes, please.
Okay, whereas, and you'll recognize why, because you remember okay. Whereas the commission has sought clarification from the sewer department regarding its comments of December 14th, 2022 and March 6th, 2023. And the commission has been advised the project should not create a risk to the public interest in health or safety that outweighs the town's need for affordable housing. Insomuch as the applicant has provided in writing an acknowledgement that as part of the project, the applicant will complete necessary off-site sewer rehabilitation work to accommodate its proposed residential use in this sewer and zoning district. To be consistent with the town's requirements on other projects in the sewer shed, the requirement of offsetting flow from the proposed residential development will be applied. This requirement is based on a removal ratio of 10:1, remove 10 GPD of peak infiltration and inflow for every 1 GPD of new average daily sewer flow. This would likely require installing a cured in place pipeliner in one segment of the 8 to 12-inch diameter sanitary sewer main or other comparable sewer rehabilitation work, such as manholes, rehab, etc. You'll recognize a lot of that language is from the actual comments of the sewer department, but what they clarified, sorry for extending this, is that as long as the applicant has signed that acknowledgement, there is not a public interest that is of health and safety that's outweighed by the sewer conditions, which was important. Okay.
Mhm.
With that, proceed, Mr. McRae.
Okay, so the commission finds that the sewer division issued comments dated 3/6/23, requesting the applicant submit a signed letter acknowledging receipt of the P and Z comments and recommendations to the plan.
So that part
Engineering
is
issue-
done
Mhm.
because I just read that.
Right.
Okay.
Engineering issued comments on 3/20/23 indicating concerns or recommendations to the project. ARC issued comments following their 11/16/22 meeting indicating to the applicant application be forwarded to the Planning and Zoning Commission with recommendations. Parking, the applicant has provided 11 on-site spaces, inclusive of one accessible space and a parking management plan. Beta issued comments dated 3/6/23 indicating issues to be addressed. Conservation issued comments dated 12/12/22 with concerns and recommendations to the project. The housing specialist issued comments dated 12/15 indicating no comments on the draft affordability plan dated 3/15/23. Wetlands issued a permit needs questionnaire on 10/28/22 indicating no action required. And EMAC issued comments dated 1/17/23 indicating a disappointing review of the provided energy narrative and providing recommendations to the plan. Therefore, a motion to approve the site plan noting the following. The construction phasing narrative dated 10/28/22 shall be included as part of the site development soils and erosion control plans. Prior to zoning permit, the final affordability plan shall be reviewed by planning and zoning staff and law department and be recorded in the town land records. The final affordability plan shall be include the parking management plan. Per ARC comments, they suggest the applicant use a different brick color materials and trims to differentiate the building from the Hamilton 830G project at 171 Hamilton Avenue. Perhaps introduce stone indigenous to the Byram area to reflect the neighborhood. The building lights, such as the front door lighting, should not cast the glow on the facade. The applicant indicated that discussions with the Affordable Housing Trust may lead to changes to the overall design and agreed to come back to ARC to review the final design during construction drawing phase. Final design review shall take place prior to zoning permit. Per engineering comments, prior to zoning permit, the applicant shall contact parking services for approval to eliminate those parking spaces on the north side of Grand Street, creating conflict with the proposed project. And prior to zoning permit, the applicant shall contact the Commissioner of Public Works for a waiver of approval to accommodate the two proposed driveways on Grand Street that do not meet the required separation distance between driveways. The pursuer division comment, the applicant submitted an acknowledgement letter dated 3/14/23. Per beta comments, the proposed driveway and curb cuts should be finalized in accordance with the town standards in accordance with town DPW staff prior to the building permit. Per section 6185A, the commission finds the residential use could be considered to be non-transient in terms of parking, and that the spaces at the end of the parking rows space do not need to be the 10-foot required width. Per conservation comments, as proposed, the building will have a flat roof and the applicant shall explore the opportunity to install a roof garden to mitigate the lack of vegetative areas at the ground level and installation of solar panels. And the new parking area should provide at least 10% of the 10% of the area EV ready wiring for future electric car charging stations installation. And the applicant shall address any and all remaining staff or interdepartmental issues.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Jenkins has seconded. If they don't get the sign off on the driveways, what is the consequence of that?
They'd have to revise the plans, Madam Chair, to meet the DPW standard or seek a different alternative.
Now, to our point, that revision in the plan does not affect the project economics. We would be requesting then a change in the plan that does not affect the 830G economics.
No, again, it's just a matter of where the driveway is. It's
Okay.
not, we're not saying that they have to add more parking or scrap the layout altogether. With that said, I don't think that there will be an issue getting a waiver from the.
Great.
public.
All righty. I just wanted to make sure because I didn't want to have any conditions that negatively impact the project, which I believe from an economic point of view, which is what we are bound to do if there are not issues of major health and safety. All right, so we have a second. Do we have any other discussion?
I think it's just actually the making sure that your notes are actually included in this.
I will send them to
I think,
Patrick
yeah.
now.
Yes, that's a critical issue, because I
Yeah.
think actually as part of this and or any future development that your notes actually were kind of spot on that.
Well, that was the thing, was that what we had decided, what the statement was, that as you will remember, Mr. DeAndrea said, well, sewer hasn't indicated that there's a public health and safety issue. And so the sewer department was asked, and sewer said, well, in fact, the applicant never asked us that, but there wouldn't be as long as the applicant has acknowledged that they're going to be doing offsite work.
Mhm.
And that was the key here. All right. Okay. So is everybody ready to vote? Yep.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to start with the top left corner, Mr. Levy, my top left. Mr. Levy?
Oh, aye, sorry.
Aye. All right. Ms. Jenkins,
Aye.
Mr. Yeski,
Aye.
Mr. McRae.
Aye.
Albin is also aye, and with that, the motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Ms. Cullen, we will now do 1, 2, 3, 4 applications before we go into the public hearing. And if you can send your email, your text or something to Patrick, he can always grab you when we're on the 4th one.
Okay.
In the meantime, I would like to, just repeat the announcement in case people joined us late. 1205 East Putnam, AKA Shake Shack, withdrew their application. I know nothing more. I can give you no more explanations. Don't email me and ask me. All I know is that for this point in time, they have withdrawn. So if you're here for Shake Shack, you can do something else. All right. Thank you very much. Now we go back to the regular meeting, and our next item, seated on the next item are Levy, McRae, Yeski, Barilak. Bob, are you here?
Here.
Oh, this is bizarre. Why do I not see you? Oh, there you are. Okay. Barilak and Albin. Levy, McRae, Yeski, Barilak, and Albin. This application is as for me and my house for final subdivision at 27 Richmond Drive in the R7 on almost 17,000 square foot property. Mr. Hegney, would you kindly proceed?
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, members of the commission. John Hegney for the applicants. I am joined in the audience this evening by our landscape architect, Bill Kenny, our engineer, Rob Sandolo, our builder, James Johnson from the Modular Squad, and our property owner, Frank Dong.
Okay, we may not get to all those people. Let's get the big questions out and then we'll see.
They are here available for the commission in the event that you have any questions for them.
Well, I guess I got overruled on that one, and there's Bill Kenny. Hello, Mr. Kenny. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Hegney.
Pat does have a quick trigger figure. We do have some slides that we'd like to take you through just to explain our thought process and what brings us here this evening.
Right.
Bianca, if you do have an opportunity to bring those slides up, I'd appreciate it.
Yep, I'll bring it
Will
right up.
these slides include your subdivision plan as well as your full set of floor plans, because your floor plans weren't complete in what we received?
We don't have the floor plans available. Obviously, they were submitted as part of the application.
My application, my copy of the documents had the basement, the second floor and I think the attic, but it was missing the main floor. And the subdivision plan was mixed in with that. So it was kind of confusing. I don't know if you were listening yesterday. Go ahead, Bianca. Maybe we'll get some of this.
I did hear that from the briefing yesterday. We're happy to clarify that for the commission. I would tell you that, here we're trying to evaluate whether these properties are feasible for development. And I do believe that we make a strong case for that here. Bianca, if you could go skip down to slide 4. We'll take a look at a map 1039. This is the original subdivision of Northern Old Greenwich. 27 Richmond Drive, as Madam Chair noted, is an oversized parcel. It's highlighted here, shown as lots 168 and 169 in blue from this 1924 subdivision. This is obviously North Old Greenwich prior to the construction of I-95. What I want to emphasize here is that much of this section of Old Greenwich is still in this configuration. And if we slide down to the next slide on slide 5, we have a map 1039 overlaid on our current town GIS map. And you will see that the property lines track exactly what they were when the neighborhood was outlaid in 1924. The commission is familiar with a project like this in this portion of Old Greenwich. You guys saw this in March 2020, our last public hearing before the pandemic, as part of PLPZ 2019-500. It was a subdivision of 22 Sound Beach Avenue. That required a variance of frontage to separate the lots. This application is done in compliance with the R7 standards. If we can go down to our next slide, the site plan here. You see our 2 lots. We have proposed lot 1 on the westerly or left-hand side of the plan. It'll be a fronting lot with a portion of the existing home to be removed. This is to accommodate the lot line and ensure that we have proper setbacks on that lot. Proposed lot number 2 is on the right side of the plan, the easterly side. Here we'll be proposing a new home that will comply with the 7,555 square foot zoning lot area that is left after you take off the 500 foot access way that's created by this rear lot. We brought you this development plan here because the new home that we're looking to do is something that we're looking to pursue right away, assuming that the commission gives us permission to subdivide these lots. The house was specifically tailored to the existing site topography and ledge to ensure that we meet not just the zoning regulations and the subdivision regulations, but also the terms of the town's stormwater drainage manual. I realize that the engineering division did have some comments on this. I think that the comments have the look of something much more significant than they may actually convey. Or in other words, I think the bark is worse than the bite. But I'm happy to go through that with the commission if they're interested in hearing our take on those engineering comments.
I think so. Just to refresh everybody's memory on the commission, the comment from DPW is that they recommend issues be resolved prior to our final subdivision approval, and that because there is a significant amount of ledge on the property, they do not recommend approval of the subdivision based on what information they have now. So this could obviously change with further discussions. The comment that they make is that in previous applications, engineering has allowed the removal of ledge to provide the minimum 2-foot separation for the drainage, but that they do that for redevelopment and not for a new subdivision. So that is the issue that they would have to work out, that the applicant should work out with this. For our purposes, folks, as we discussed yesterday at the briefing, we can't approve a subdivision for a lot that cannot be developed and for which there is an objection like this. So what would make sense would be for them to go back to engineering and see if they can resolve this. The second issue that engineering raised, wow, that was weird. Who's got a screen share up that's doing, ooh, what's going on? Patrick?
I was just gonna take it down while you're talking.
Oh, okay. It was strange. I lost my train of thought. Oh,
Madam Chair,
so
if
the
I
other
may
thing,
jump in there.
no, don't introduce this. I'll recover my train of thought. The second issue was one of sightlines. And I'm sure that can be resolved. There's some questions about what is blocking the sightlines and whether the tree warden would approve the removal of vegetation to open up the sightlines. That's another issue that should be resolved, again, because of making sure that the driveway locations are acceptable. So with that, Mr. Hegney, I think of everything you've got, those are the two main areas of focus right now, unless somebody on the commission wants to add something else. Go ahead now, Mr. Hegney, go.
I was waiting for Mr. McRae. He looked like he wanted to share something.
He is.
Yeah, I'm
but,
going to say, yeah, I will, but go ahead, Mr. Hegney. Let's
Go ahead,
Okay,
get the
certainly.
two big, that's the two big issues. I think there's a longer list behind it, but the first two issues are whether or not you can subdivide.
Certainly, and I do believe that we can under the circumstances that we've put together here. We did look at the reduction of runoff volume with our engineer, Rob Sandolo, today. He walked me through the permeable paver system. And essentially, the parfait that they've put together for us here is that we have permeable pavers from elevation 106 in the parking court just outside the house that will run down to elevation 104. And then at elevation 104 to elevation 102, we're providing the required 2-foot separation between the bottom of our infiltration structure and the ledge that we found in our deep test holes.
Okay, so you're saying that if you're going to be able to make a case when you go back to engineering that you can establish those 2 feet.
So I think we can do better than that, Madam Chair. So, you know,
Good, you're going to have more than 2 feet?
Well, I think that the 2 feet that we're providing does demonstrate that we're complying with the storm drainage manual and that we're doing or making a massive improvement to what's on site. You know, we did look at the impervious surface that was there under existing conditions for the driveway. Currently, there's an untreated impermeable driveway of 1,816 square feet.
Right.
Because of the construction of this permeable pavement system, we're going to reduce that number to 1,371 in the subdivision. So we're doing a massive improvement under those conditions. I do want to note that if you take a look at the subdivision, or at the, the stormwater drainage manual provisions, specifically section 5.6.1 for runoff reduction volume and groundwater recharge, and 5.7.2 for physical site feasibility factors. The 2-foot requirement is something that the town can vary. The drainage manual says, quote, this separation requirement may be waived or reduced by the approving authority on a case-by-case basis.
Which of course would be DPW.
But what it doesn't say is that there are any circumstances in which they would require more than 2 feet.
Okay, but they say here that they don't think you can meet the 2 feet, and that's the way they've written it. So, and the other thing is, so why would we be insistent that you go back and fix this? Because everywhere in town, people are raising a concern about drainage and flooding. And for us to approve anything, even remotely consider something where engineering has said, we're not sure that this is, that it's going to be met, the 2 feet. What we'd like you to do is go back and talk to them and get a sign off.
Madam Chair, we're more than willing to do that. What we would ask that the commission ensure is that Public Works doesn't impose greater standards on us than any other project in town. And this standard is something that Public Works has regularly approved under these conditions. Most recently, next to the town hall at 125 Field Point Road, the Modern. It's another situation where ledge removal occurred.
That was redevelopment at the Modern, of course, which is
That was
their point.
redevelopment. But I would say that just because we're subdividing and creating a new lot does not mean we get a new set of rules.
No, but they make it totally clear that redevelopment and new development for them are different. Redevelopment means you had an existing property that was developed, that was allowed to go forward. You are now creating a new lot. That's not an inconsistent set of rules. The other thing is, Mr. Hegney, I'm sorry, but it nowhere in the Enabling Act does it say that the zoning commission has the power to override a DPW decision. It just doesn't say that. So you are going to have to get them to come around. We are not going to tell them how to run their business. That's just, we're not empowered to do that, and we're not going to. We will happily discuss this with them, but they are the experts in this regard. So I would suggest you fix that. So having bought into that, and then you can work with the tree warden, my sense is you can replace trees. You're going to be with the new landscape regulations. Now, we have a boatload of other smaller issues. The first one is, can you even subdivide? The second ones relate, the second tier relates more to the development plan. I would be tempted to wait till you come back with a cleared ability to subdivide first, before we start asking you about this development plan. In the simplest terms, and we've said it yesterday, not completely comfortable with that new structure. The set of floor plans wasn't complete. The driveways are puzzling. There's a lot of stuff that could be investigated better. Nick, do you want to give them a short list and we won't discuss it, to just let them think about it? You mentioned some of them yesterday, I think.
Madam
short
Chair, I
list?
will
Yeah.
say that I will say that I do believe we have some of the answers that the commission is looking for. So
Well, I don't
I'm
wanna
happy to provide
spend
them
a-
tonight or
But here's the
let's-
thing, if we don't know that you have a subdividable lot, I don't want to spend an hour solving the small problems.
Let's do
Uh,
short list. Okay, Mr.
short
Hegney, let's
list.
start
Don't
using
answer us.
using
Go.
your slides. Okay, slide number 3 is the subdivision plan. Okay.
Mr.
I
Macra,
think this-
I do know that we do need to dust that up.
Okay.
We can happily
Okay,
separate
so dust
the,
that up.
Wait, John.
Sure.
Mr. Hegney.
Okay,
I
so
didn't
make it
finish the
clear,
sentence.
make it a suitable map for filing, showing the appropriate boxes, setbacks, etc. Okay.
The lots.
You also have, because I'm looking
structural
for a
box-
subdivision plan. Looking for a subdivision plan. This looks more like a zoning location survey for the development of the site. I need a subdivision plan because that's what ultimately we're talking about today.
Sure.
Okay. Now, your development plan. Okay. And this is just a simple question. You have to basically gonna have to answer this, but I'll put it on the record here. You said that you were able to provide the depth. As I see this and looking at your plans, the top elevation of exposed ledge is at 115. The note on the plan says, remove ledge to an elevation of 102 beneath and downslope of porous driveway. Porous driveway has an existing elevation of 112. That's a lot of something to remove. That's the thing that we really need to be resolved. Your site development plans do not match up. I have partial plans of one building and partial plans of a completely different building. If we're looking at site development plans or architectural plans, they need to be presented in whatever we're supposed to be reviewing, not two different things. I need to understand how the existing or the proposed driveway relates to the old house and why there are two separate sets of stairs going to the building. Because as I look at the plans, it seemed like the building was laid out in one set as a 2-family and that the other was a 1-family. And I could not actually discern which was what, other than the site plan seemed to be being built for a 2-family with 2 separate entrances. Okay. So that's where we're going. Now, I do want to make sure that actually understanding the outflow of the permeable pavement looks like it goes to an open trench and down slope to the street. It would be important to make sure that that's not going to be an impediment on the street, seeing the slope is going from 115 at your high point down to the street. And I just think that engineering should take a look to make sure that that isn't going to create an icing situation on the street in heavy weather and freeze.
So, okay, that it, right? Nick?
At the moment, yes. Now, Mr.
Okay.
Hegney, I guess we're looking for, this is a subdivision because actually the existing building crosses over the line. Is that correct?
That is
Right.
correct, Mr. McRae.
Okay. So now we have to make sure that actually the FAR of the existing building conforms to whatever's left over on their lot.
Yeah, they're gonna chop off the back of it, so you have to tell us, A, what the FAR is now, what you're gonna chop off and all of that, so,
Make sure that it fits.
yeah. Okay,
Okay.
so, can we send you off with all that homework now? And don't worry about answering us, because first and foremost, subdividable, and and then all the other issues. I think we did finally hear from conservation, but I'm gonna skip that for now, okay?
Marisa was kind enough to send those comments over to me earlier this afternoon.
Okay, good.
I do believe we've got some answers from Mr. McRae and the commission, but I'm happy to
Great,
bring that to you at a future hearing date.
very much appreciated. The first thing, tell us we have a subdividable property. And tell us that
And
you're,
I believe we can show the commission that.
great, okay, wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Hegney.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Our next item, folks, is,
Public
DN
comment, Madam Chair? Did you want
oh,
to?
gosh, thank you so much. Do we have any public comment? Any public comment on this application? At 27 Richmond Drive. Margaret, and I'm so sorry because I knew you had written. Okay, she didn't come into the meeting.
Madam Chair, if she's having difficulty getting in, we
She's
have been
in.
in discussion with Ms. Kimball.
No,
I'll
it's
let her
fine.
take it
She's
from
here. I'm gonna, Ms. Kimball, if you would unmute, and again, thank you. Good, I got you.
Okay, great. Hi, sorry about that.
Hi.
Here, let me get a little out of the light. Yes, you have my comments, so I'll keep this very
Yes.
brief. The one thing is that when we saw the actual site, if it should be that existing site, which I'll keep brief because that's yet to be determined. We were interested in a privacy hedge. We were shown preliminary plans that seemed to not leave enough room for the privacy hedge we had talked about. Our other concern is that right now, there are over 10 mature trees on the property, and the current plan seems to fell, if not all of them, almost all of them, which is an issue for drainage as well as it's just greenery for our family and nice space and shade for our yard. When we first moved into our property, there had been some historical flooding and mold issues, which was the first thing that we remediated. So again, we're concerned about the trees and just maintaining that.
Great, okay. And we've got it, so that when they come back, please join us and you can make more comment then. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Any other public comment on 27 Richmond? And thanks again, Patrick. All right, okay, now we're set. Okay, so this application will be continued and we will now move on. Thank you very much, Mr. Hegney. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, our next application is DNF Holdings for a final subdivision to create 3 lots out of a 71,000. No, I take it back. 3 lots. And I'm going to stop there and let them talk. At 137 Dublin Road in the RA1 zone. Hello, Mr. Hegney. Please
Good
proceed.
evening, or good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the commission. For the record, Tom Hegney on behalf of the applicant. You have seen this previously as part of a preliminary. We needed to get a variance so that we would not have to use the access ways to Boulder Brook Road. We had to get that before we came back to you with a final. We have gotten that variance, and the lots as proposed are to use the existing drive out to Doubling Road that they will share with one other house. So there'll be a total of 4 houses on it. There is a couple of things that came up from the briefing yesterday, and perhaps we could bring up the presentation material and go to slide 4. There was some discussion from the Conservation Commission on a portion of the open space, which is on the upper portion of the land rather than down where the rest of the open space is. And there's a very large stone wall that's some 7-8 feet height. And there's about a 7-foot area that is within the open space, but more on the same level as the development area. And although it is some 15 feet below where the pool is on that particular lot. And there was a question as to whether that could be, whether the lot line could be redrawn there. What it would do is reduce the amount of open space in that location. Because that's where the access road is for Lot C on the subdivision. And the thought we had in looking at this and discussing it with the landscape architect for the project is we could plant that heavily with evergreens and really use that as a barrier between the active portion of Lot C and this wall, which is rather monumental, actually. It was built some time ago. So the thought was, rather than changing the lot line, we would just vegetate that area in a permanent way so that it would not be used as part of the active or lawn area of Lot C.
Okay. How about the comments from the health department?
Well, I fortunately yesterday, while you were having your briefing, we did receive the 2 letters from the health department. One is a septic approval for Lot A,
Which we knew you had.
the easterly or westerly, westerly lot. And then there's another letter, which is commonly referred to as a ledge letter. And that's because there is not sufficient soil between the ledge and the top of the ground.
Right.
And what the health department looks for is that it be 48 inches from the level of the ground to the ledge.
So the memo
And
they
what-
sent us, is a 6-bedroom septic has been approved for Lot A. Septic systems for lots B and C cannot be approved at this time because it doesn't meet because the septic fill doesn't meet this 4-foot. And so you've got that letter, Mr. Hegney, which means, once again, deja vu, we have a situation where we may not be able to approve a subdivision because we don't know that you have a septic approvable. The first question we asked at the briefing yesterday is if you make the proposed houses smaller, would you need a different type of septic, a smaller septic, and could you move forward on that basis?
Of course, it's not the size of the house, it's the number of bedrooms.
Yes, we know that, Mr.
Control
Hegney.
the size
right.
of the septic system. But if you read down through the first paragraph of the letter from the health department, it says, assuming adequate depth to ledge can be obtained, the proposed design otherwise is generally satisfactory and meets the minimum state of Connecticut Public Health Code requirements. It's just a matter of bringing the required dirt onto the site in order to show the health department that there's now 4 feet of fill on top of the ledge. It's not a question of can this be done, it's just when do you do it? And normally it's done when you're doing construction on the site rather than at the time you're getting subdivision
Because
approval.
normally you're not creating a new lot. You're thinking when you're redeveloping or you're putting in a new septic. Now here you are creating a new lot. I don't know where you go with the same question of, do we need to have the assurance somehow that you have a developable lot? That's all we need to know
Uh,
to do that.
In
so that-
the audience should be Rob Frangione,
Okay.
our project
Okay,
engineer.
before you go
And
there,
that it sounds like more of an engineering question, so
it is, but
I
before
thought it
you
would
go
be
there,
good to have him
speaking
on.
of engineering question, so your comments from the engineering department, which I just lost, are that they have that their original comments from, and they don't put the date in it, still need to be addressed before they are willing to support final subdivision application approval.
Of course,
So,
as
Hi,
yes, go
oh,
ahead.
look, Mr. Frangione, there he is driving along. You're not supposed to look at the screen, okay?
I'm parked. I'm actually at a
Okay.
track meet. I'm in the parking lot.
Okay, all right, so, Mr. Hegney, so what I would suggest to you is that you address these engineering comments so that they're comfortable for the subdivision approval. And at the same time, is there a way that you could move it forward with the health department? Because sure, they approve. It could be conditional if you were just relocating the septic on an existing developed lot. Here you are subdividing, and there's a question as to whether the subdivision can actually be developed as proposed. Same issue we were dealing with in another application. So is there something else? Patrick, any thoughts?
No, I mean, I think we need the answers per the subdivision regulations. That I understand Mr. Kegney's point about the sewer, and I think he's correct that I think
Septic.
there is. Thank you. That the plans do not say that there is no ability, just that there needs to be those the soils brought onto the site. However, the engineering or the DPW comments, I think, need to be addressed to satisfy the sewer the subdivision regulations.
Is there a better letter we can get from the health department?
Well, we could talk
I'm
to
sorry,
them
Pat.
about maybe explaining what their what the ask is. I mean, Mr. Hackney did a good job explaining of what it is, and that's the understanding that we have as staff, is that there are opportunities to bring soils in to meet the regulation, but meet the health code, but that, you know, that needs to be done to their standard to be in order to get it approved, right?
If Mr. Frangione
Go
could
ahead,
just
and then-
address that question
Sure.
briefly.
And then Mr. Barilak's got a question. Go ahead, Mr. Frangione.
Okay. For the record, Rob Frangione, Frangione Engineering. We do this all the time. I have a project right now over on 15 Sawmill where we went through the same thing. It was a vacant lot. They had a ledge letter, so we did the soil testing. Had less than 48 inches to ledge. Everything was good about it except for the depth to ledge. We stripped the topsoil, we put the select fill in, the health department comes and looks at it, and then it issues the approval. This is a standard operating procedure in Greenwich. They would not, they being the health department, wouldn't issue the ledge letter unless there were if there were other deficiencies in the plan.
Okay.
And that's what
that
it
we
says in the
assume
letter. It
that they
otherwise meets the
they
health
don't
code.
state other deficiencies. We saw that there's nothing else stated. So you're kind of telling us what we know. But the question is,
Right.
is
This is
there
the only issue,
a
though,
way?
so.
Now, again, you have a vacant lot. Sounds to me like it was previously created. Our snag here is we are creating a new lot. So I guess my first question is, what's the precedent? Do we have the creation of new lots with lead that there's an outstanding ledge letter and the commission goes ahead? I've never seen one, okay, but maybe I just don't remember. Mr. Barilak, go ahead.
I remember one, actually, I believe it was on Doubling further down. It was center development. It was back when I was with my prior firm.
So
it
maybe
was a
Mr.
4-lot
Hegney,
subdivision down closer to, I believe, Hill. Yeah.
done deal.
Where that,
Why
and I
don't-
remember that one being ledge letter job. So
Okay, Mr. Hegney, if you could dig that out, that would be hugely helpful to us.
Certainly,
Then you
Madam
can
Chair.
show us where there's been the creation of a new lot and there's a ledge letter. And then we would be able to condition it accordingly, maybe review it anyway. Mr. Barilak.
I was just, it seems so simple to me that they ought to be able to truck in as much dirt as they need. And our approval could simply be conditioned on them trucking in enough under the supervision of the sewer department, the health department, to get an approval. I'm not, it doesn't seem hard to me.
Okay, so the snag is, go ahead.
No,
Let Patrick, I'm gonna let Patrick do this one.
Okay, well, I think you were gonna say what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
The issue with subdivision is once you approve it, you've created 2 lots and there's not a mechanism to go backwards.
But why would we have any difficulty believing that it's possible to truck into any lot that you can develop, any lot that you can get a truck onto, right? Enough dirt to make the sewer department happy. It seems to me to be
Septic Health Department.
department, health
By
department.
the way, your sound is coming in badly, at
Well,
least to
maybe
me.
You're a bit
maybe it's
distant.
because all the thoughts are coming in badly.
No, yeah, it's very hard to hear you. So yes, it seems simple enough. People promise you that, don't worry, we'll bring enough dirt in and this will work. But to Patrick's point, you approve the lot and then it doesn't work, you're stopped because you have approved a lot that can't develop. And that you can't do. So your problem is you need to somehow find a way, precedent, which Mr. Hegney can show us, or some way of working our way around it. Mr. McRae.
Mr. Frangione, quick question. Of the test pits, were these 2 septic locations for B and C the only places that were suitable?
Yes, you have to remember that there was an old house on this property. And so on these 2 lots, everywhere else was where the old house was, or the old driveways, or all these disturbed areas. So the areas where the septic systems are being proposed are where there were natural soils. And in fact, for lot C, the proposed septic system is in the area of where the old septic system was.
Okay.
For the old house. So,
okay, so it can't.
all the more reason why I'm confident that it shouldn't be an issue.
Okay.
Right. So lot C, it can't be between the pool and that very tall wall that's there.
No, that's all fill. There's a lot of fill back there. That's not suitable soil for septic.
Right.
So
bringing fill.
That's why the systems are where they are. Because
but I don't understand that.
There's
you're bringing in
not
fill
all
so
fills
you
are
can
created
create.
equal.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Fill,
right.
which means
So why wouldn't
SIV,
you
requirements of health code?
Okay, and you can't replace the old
Because
fill.
if there isn't, if there isn't good native soil below the fill that was there, then
Got
that
it.
area is unsuitable. So these
Okay.
septic areas we have, there are native soils that are suitable. So.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, there. Okay, so you should be able to find a precedent. If Mr. Hegney can find, and I'm still asking the question, hey, if your development plan shows 4 bedrooms now, and then you bring in and we approve the subdivision, and then later on, after you have the subdivision, you do one for 6 bedrooms because you've brought the fill in, how hard is that?
Well, these are 6-bedroom designs now, and the
so let me
design is based on the soil conditions. So the soil conditions are what's going to dictate it. We would have this ledge letter if it was a 2-bedroom house.
That was the question that nobody answered. Okay, got it. So it doesn't matter. You can't reduce the number of
doesn't
bedrooms.
matter.
You just don't have enough space.
No.
Okay, Mr. McRae, anything else?
Mr. Frangione, the last comments we had from engineering was the 28th of March. Is any of that issue in his letter a problem, or is this basically just going through boilerplate? The one thing I did see, I guess they're looking for another waiver from the Commissioner of Public Works.
No, I think so first of all, I have a meeting with Mr. Paredes tomorrow afternoon. But I think the issues pertained to the driveway and and sight lines. And we provided, I think it was sheet 6, a sightline profile that shows that we meet the 150-foot sight line. In fact, that was the first thing my clients did, was made sure we had that, because they wouldn't have bought the property without it, because we knew that was going to be a make or break deal. So I've provided that and I've provided the notes that were requested at the preliminary subdivision level. Those are all on sheet S1. So hopefully these are things that Juan and I can resolve tomorrow.
Okay, I'm looking at sheet 6. I see the detail that you put on here. Okay.
Okay, so you're saying you just didn't address the comments that they gave you on the preliminary, but you can address them. And then you'll also address the comments that they have for the final.
I'm saying I addressed the comments on the preliminary. Don't know why they're still being repeated, but we'll discuss that tomorrow when we discuss the comments that have come in since the filing of the
Perfect.
final.
Okay, he says because they haven't been addressed.
Right. Okay.
But
So
he may just, okay, go ahead, Mr. McRae.
so as I see it here, Mr. Hagney, you got a variance for the driveway use from ZBA in October. So zoning is okay with that. Mr.
Yes.
Frangione just told us that he's going to meet with DPW engineering to resolve those notes. Health Department has the ledge letter for B and C is okay. And Wetlands gave us a permit needs questionnaire. I'm just wondering if we missed anything on this.
It's really very straightforward. The lots meet all of the zoning criteria. We're going to utilize the existing driveway for all 3 lots. The sight lines, as Rob indicated, our clients wouldn't have bought this property if they couldn't show that the sight lines were there. That was the first thing that Rob looked at as part of the contract signing. That was part of the due diligence. So we don't see anything in the engineering comments that cannot be resolved at this stage.
Okay, so that sounds
There's one
good.
comment I would make, and that's
Yeah.
that they talk about this, and I'll bring this up again, the next one that we're looking at later on in the meeting. They want to review the agreement between the property owners as to driveway maintenance. And that's not so much an engineering question as it is
Yeah.
a legal question. And before we can sell any of these lots, there will have to be an agreement on maintenance of the driveway, who's going to pay what for plowing and for paving. But
Yeah,
that's not really an engineering issue.
But
That's really
this is
a legal issue
it-
between
you're-
the parties.
Mr. Hagney, this is actually of the 3 new lots. This is actually shared by 2 other properties. The driveway,
Just one.
one other.
So it only brings it
there are
to
only
4.
4. Right, it's only 4. Then we would be having, another
different
discussion in
discussion.
terms of the
Okay,
Yeah.
town charter.
well, you resolve it with them and okay.
We'll have that discussion with Juan.
Does anybody else want to add something? No, all right. Does anybody from the public wish to speak on this application? Mr. Hagney, I'm assuming you don't mind my asking. This is 137 Doubling Road. Any public comment on 137 Doubling Road? No, all right. Well, Tom Tomai, oh, I know who this is. All right. Sir, if you would unmute, you can go ahead and speak.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, please go ahead.
Great, thank you. We were at the last meeting and you had told us that we should pay attention to the schedule if we had comments. Is this the right meeting to go to?
You want to comment on this application at 137 Doubling Road, sir?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, please. This is the
Oh,
right
okay.
moment. Please
Okay.
do it.
Well, we had asked a question about the drainage pipe that's in the ground that's crushed from many, many years ago. And we met with Rob and the owner and they told us that they were going to be replacing that, which is great. We're very happy about that. The question is, we see it in the drawing. If it's approved today, is it for sure going to happen or can it be changed later?
We are not going to approve this application today. It doesn't sound like because they have to address the comments from DPW engineering. I don't think we would approve it because we have outstanding comments. So if you wanted to say something, you could come back, but if you want to give the applicants an input, this is your moment.
No, we gave them our input and they were very receptive and were very.
Great. Okay.
That what they said happens. And that the pipe does go in and it's part of the plan that's approved.
Okay. All right. So hopefully. you will
Mr.
share that.
Franjo, just a quick question.
Yeah.
Mr. Franjo, just to make sure, that pipe runs north-south on the east side of the development?
Correct. And our plans show that we're going to replace that to an existing junction structure, jet and clean the part that's within the 100-foot upland review limit to wetlands, and then let it go from there. So yes, we have committed to replacing that pipe.
Okay, and it goes, I guess it's just outfall into the open space?
Yes.
That's where it terminates, and then it's from whatever is the end of the pipe on the neighboring property with a new 12-inch plastic pipe. That's what I'm seeing
Yes.
here? Okay.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
All right. So Mr. Higgins, you're going to be able to fix this question with health because you're going to show us that it can be addressed, and then you'll meet with Mr. Paredes and address his comments and the ones that are outstanding. And
Yes.
Patrick, Bianca, do you remember, since this was yours, is there anything else outstanding that we should ask the applicant about while they're here?
This was actually Jackie's, but did you see
Oh.
the conservation comments that came in?
No, I know
this
they
afternoon?
came in. They came in and I did not see them. Hold on. Did anybody see them? Mary, you're my trustworthy, grabs it in the afternoon.
Yeah, in the 10 minutes before the meeting.
Yeah.
There were some positive things, although they did also raise the stone wall as used for the open space boundary. There was also a note about, and I couldn't really place this I didn't have the time to check. There's talk about very invasive species on some portion of the property that needs to be addressed. And they also mentioned, by the way, the septic on the ledge. They actually like the landscape plan though.
Okay.
So
All
it
right.
started out well.
Okay.
The invasives, I believe, are in the area where that pipe is going to be replaced. So
Great.
Something tells me we're going to be getting rid of some of those as we replace
Two
that
birds.
pipe.
And
Great.
it sounds
Yeah.
like the sort of thing that everyone would want to get rid of anyway, because they're talking about the lantern flies being attracted to those.
Mhm.
So
Oh, those are those big ones.
the big nasty ones, yeah.
Ones you're asked to kill, I've seen.
All right. Okay. Well, we're going to send Mr. Frangione out to do that. Mr. Hagney, you are excused from lanternfly. Okay. So
Thank you, Madam Chair.
does anybody object? We'll continue this application. All right. And no further comment? All right. Okay.
We-
Thank you. Yeah, Mr.
We'll
Hagney,
be
did
back
you?
to you.
Okay. Thank you
Thank you.
very much,
Thank you.
sir. All right. All right. So a little longer than I wanted. Okay. All right, so our next application is 140 Hamilton Avenue LLC for a final site plan to construct 8 parking spaces in the lot in the rear of the property at 140 Hamilton Avenue. And representing the applicant is Mr. Hopper.
Good evening, everybody. Let's see if I get my video going here. Here we go.
Great.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I appreciate your time this evening. We are back for our second meeting regarding the parking lot that's proposed over at 140 Hamilton. Where currently there is no parking on site for the building, which contains both retail and residential uses. Initially, we were proposing to have a parking lot that could be shared with both the residential and the retail usage, as there is a need for both. After our first meeting, it was apparent that the section 6137 seemed to prevent us from going ahead with commercial use for that parking lot. The entrance to this parking lot is opposite the R6 zone. It's an odd lot across the street on Charles Street. It's actually a split zone lot. So it's both a R6 and an LBR2 zone. So it's sort of a unique situation. And our initial thoughts were, given the unique situations, that perhaps 137 did not really apply. So that was our initial approach. Subsequently, we have issued new drawings and addressed some of the other issues from especially the engineering department. One of the issues were some of the drainage issues that have been resolved with our engineering firm, DeAndrea. So I think those are all taken care of in terms of to their satisfaction. And we have included now some porous pavement at the recommendation of the Conservation Department. So the east and west parking bays are largely porous at this point. The middle section is not, but the two actual stall areas, east and west, are porous asphalt at this point. So that was an improvement that we made there. Also, we've added signage now that indicates that this is strictly for residential use. So there are signs on both sides of the entrance. There are some other signs just restricting parking to allow for sight lines, when you're leaving the parking lot, so that your sight lines are adequate. I think that still needs to be sanctioned by the parking services. But right now, we feel that the signs that restrict the parking, we still have 3 parking spaces to the east of our entrance along Charles Street. So there'd still be 3 parking spaces there on the street that will remain. Further, we've decreased the mouth or the entrance and exit to the parking lot to 18 feet, where before it was 23. And this is in response to changing the use from a commercial use to a shared commercial use to a strictly residential use. The configuration of the parking lot still is 8 spaces. We feel there's a desperate need for parking in this area. The owner has indicated that currently there are 8 cars being used by the residents only of the, in other words, we have 1 studio and we have 3 2-bedroom apartments. So a total of 8 people actually living there, all of whom have cars. So there is a desperate need for parking, off-street parking in this area. And I know we've had at least one public comment validating the fact that Charles Street is in need of additional parking. So with that, I think we'll open it up to any questions that you might have, and I'd be happy to respond to them.
Commission, any questions?
Yeah,
Well,
Go ahead, Ms. Jenkins.
Mary, Ms. Jenkins, and then Mr. McRae.
sorry, Nick. Yeah, I'm a little concerned about the signage. You're saying it's residential only. Is it going to be residential only for people in this building?
That's the intent, yes.
Okay. And as desperate as the parking situation is in that part of Chickahominy, I guess I had anticipated there would be something a little more controlled than that, because if there is an empty space, people will ignore your signs and other residential parking. So I'm gonna park there during the day when there's an empty space. Is there any consideration about making sure that in fact it's used the way it's intended?
Well, I think our signage would say for residents of the building only, not any resident, but residents of 140 Hamilton only.
And you are comfortable that if 4 of the spaces are empty during the day, that people won't take advantage of that, whether they are residential or retail?
I don't think that will be an issue, since the owner of the building, is the proprietor of the retail establishment, so he'll be on site.
Okay. So the idea is there'll be some sort of monitoring going on to make sure that it's being used the way it was intended to be used.
That's the intention. And again, we will have somebody, the store during store hours, of course, we'll have somebody in the store. It will be the proprietor who will monitor the situation.
Okay. I also noticed that ARC said there's an assumption that rubbish will be taken care of internally. And if not, obviously that would change the use of the rear lot as well.
That's correct. Currently, the trash removal, basically they're using the basement for storage, and then it's a private vendor that comes and takes the trash out, and it does it on a regular basis. So there's no exterior, trash, receptacle there. So it's all handled within the building.
Okay, so the assumption is that it'll be continued that way.
Yes, and a liquor store doesn't generate much other than boxes.
I was going to say boxes.
Yeah.
The bottles all go out of the store, so I understand.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Hopper.
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Hopper, though, but the trash though is for the whole building, correct?
For the whole building, yes.
Right. So you'll have the residential trash, food scraps, et cetera, all mixed in together inside in the basement.
That's what they're doing now. The residents bring down their I believe it's a regular basis, maybe twice a week. They bring down their trash, and then it's taken. They know what day the deliveries are for the garbage, and they bring it down accordingly, and then it exits the building. So it's not sitting there for any length of time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You said you had how many studio apartments?
There's one studio on the first floor.
Okay, and how many two bedrooms?
Then we have 3 2-bedrooms.
Oh, 3 2 bedrooms.
3 2. Okay. 4 units. Okay, and we only need 4 spaces per our regulations for that, correct?
Well, that would be the minimum.
Okay. I think one of the issues, and I think Ms. Jenkins brought this up, is that if we're saying this is for the use of the building only, it seems that actually if I was living in the building, left for the day and then came back, there's probably there's a likelihood that somebody who's actually maybe in the store on the street, something is parked in the space that I'm supposed to be in. I think there's, even though we're saying it, that, oh no, it'll be strictly controlled, unless there's actually a physical gate with a key, somebody's going to be there. It's not supposed to be there, I think. I appreciate the fact that actually there's you put the permeable pavers in there, but I think there's there's an awful lot of asphalt back there where there hasn't been before. And I think actually, yes, I see the landscape plan there that was revised a while back, and it puts in a lot of good plantings. But I think actually one of the intents of the new regulation was to make sure that actually that you had some canopy trees in a parking lot to provide more shade. And I think that may be something that really needs to be discussed here. I did have a question for Mr. DeAndrea if he's available. If not, maybe Mr. Hopper, you can actually explain this. On the site development plan, the revised one, the corner, southeast corner of the property has an easement. And it says we see note. And I went to the note, easement during construction, the owner shall discuss the need for a sidewalk easement with the highway division. Can you explain that? What's that all about?
Sure. Let me, to the best of my ability, I certainly will try, Mr. Macri.
Bianca, you have a zoomed in of the easement now that you posted today. You want to toss that up so we can all see it?
Me?
And no, Bianca did. Ms. Taggart. And while we're waiting for that, Bob, did you have a quick question or do you want to wait? And
No, I just wanted to share some sort of professional experience as somebody who, for his day job, manages a group that owns and operates a bunch of apartment buildings, some of which have residential and some have commercial. What we found is that if the landlord will label each parking spot as reserved, especially if you label it as reserved for a resident of a particular unit, it's not 100% effective, but it's much more effective than just a sign on the front. And where we've had trouble we go out to the local Lowe's or Home Depot and we buy some big yellow or orange cones and we give them to the residents to protect their parking spots when they leave. And that's more effective. So I'm not as concerned about the commercial people intruding on residences as others would be.
What do you normally, okay, that was helpful. Thank you very much. All right, you guys ready to talk about this easement?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the easement I see on the screen there, lower right-hand side, is that little tiny triangle. Proposed easement referred to note, yeah, that. And then I go to the note and it doesn't really explain a lot. My curiosity is, what is the easement all about? Is it necessary, understanding that if there's an easement that's proposed, it's going to have to go through a process of being reviewed, so on and so forth.
Okay, so let me explain my understanding of that easement. Basically, it's an easement that, if you look at that, it's sort of a sharp point that of the property line that juts into the sidewalk area. So the suggestion, by our surveyor and engineer was that maybe we give an easement over to the town to allow that to be, public use, sort of I guess something that is then recorded as an easement, rather than just sort of a de facto easement that's been used. But if you look at, it's a pinch point, really. If you're returning either from Charles Street onto Hamilton or the other way around from Hamilton onto Charles Street, you pretty much cross that property line. Again, that is the sidewalk at this point. And the thought was maybe it was better off as an easement, deferring a little bit to, the highway department, what they thought.
Okay. So that's actually, it's based on just use of passing around the corner. Even though everything's all paved there, it's just making sure that it's not impinging on the right of way or anything there. Okay.
Right, for ease of passage, basically is the idea, Mr. Macri. Again, you're right, it's basically all asphalt at this point, but because, there is that, I'll call it a pinch point with that little triangle, the suggestion was make it an easement and see what, or suggest that it's an easement and see if the highway department would agree with that as an alternative.
Mr. Tiger, can you bring up the current landscape plan?
Sure, give me one sec.
Take your time. Thank you very much. Okay, so the landscape plan I'm looking at is 317.
Yep.
And getting back to what I was talking about is that there's some new trees proposed, heritage birches against the building, that kind of thing. I think one of the biggest things that kind of struck me most about the development of the parking lot was actually the removal of the mature trees that were in the backyard.
Well, they were already gone, Nick.
Yeah, but they were there.
Oh, they were there, but they were
And they were
removed
already gone. So my issue would be is, as I see this, there's 3 birch trees being proposed.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of thuja, the arborvitaes that screen everything. I think one of the things I would suggest is that another birch be added to the east side of the curb cut. Just so we have maybe some continuation of a canopy tree from the Grant Street side. Getting back, and as I was talking about before, is actually the new landscape regulations talk about canopy trees in parking lots and mitigating the factors of such a sea of asphalt. We do have the screening with all the thujas, but it doesn't give any kind of verticality or canopy to the asphalt. So I would think actually trying to add something in that, another one, for a total of 4 would be a really great idea.
Okay, I mean, initially, we did have additional trees on the west property line, but there was an objection by the adjacent property owner to remove those from the plan, so we did. But I guess if sightlines aren't a problem there, on the east of the exit, I think we probably could incorporate another tree there.
Okay.
Well, I think what Mr. Magra is trying to tell you is that he's not clear it's consistent with the new landscape regulations.
Well, I think it's actually just, I'm not too sure when this came in terms of when we adopted. But I think the intent of those regulations was to really kind of provide more canopy tree to expanses of asphalt. And I think the addition of 1 extra tree may go to that intent.
All right. Okay.
So
Anything else?
Discuss that with Matt Pop and look at, possible tree in that location as
Great.
well.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
All right. Mr. Levy?
Okay, honey.
Mr. Levy?
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment about the arborvitae. I would say that I'm not sure that you need height there, and you're planting that arborvitae very close together. You're planting it like a shrub, so maybe it would be more appropriate to use some kind of shrub there instead of all arborvitae. Just a suggestion, I think ultimately you'll have more success not using arborvitae because the arborvitae is a little fickle in this kind of situation. And I think that what you're trying to create is a hedge, not a line of trees.
Well, would you recommend then as rather than the arborvitae, would you recommend something that's going to be more manicured?
Or skip laurel?
Yeah, you're right. A skip laurel. They just kind of take on their own kind of. You can trim them as you wish. You don't have to trim them very much. They can just kind of be nice and pretty lush. That kind of a thing. Exactly.
Okay.
And you don't have to use only the same planting. You can vary it a little bit. So there's really quite a lot of options. And it would look probably better if you didn't rely on the arborvitae.
Okay. Anybody else, any comments? Do I have any comments from the public on 140 Hamilton Avenue? 140 Hamilton Avenue, comments from the public? Mr. Pecora. Go ahead, Mr. Pecora.
Yeah, I just want to thank the owner for doing this project because the amount of parking added is greatly appreciated to relieve the street. And as an owner in the neighborhood, we found that allocating parking spaces per unit actually limits parking. And we use a technique that's worked for us is that violators will be towed at the owner's expense, which is helpful. Also, the landscaping on the west side was actually a request by the owners of that house, which is my father and my uncle. It was meant to create a wall to separate the parking lot from the residential side and get height versus.
So Mr. Pecora, what I think Mr. Levy was saying to you is 6 feet would do that. Well, you could have a very tall driver, 7 feet would do that. A skip laurel would accomplish that and is a much healthier plant that isn't going to run into wind and climate issues.
Yeah, I'm not concerned
Alright.
about what's separating the cars from the street from the parking lot. You could change it any way he
No,
wants.
on
but
your side,
on my side, I'm not concerned about you being in a car.
You just don't want to
sitting
see
in
the parking
Sitting in
lot.
the driveway.
I gotcha.
It's more to get height. We have in the backyard of 12 Charles Street, 25-foot arborvitaes that look absolutely gorgeous.
Okay.
And create a situation that actually separates the commercial from the residential.
And you normally, Mr. Pecora, in your developments, in your 830Gs, you usually do one parking space per unit, right?
No, it depends on the number of parking, the number of 2 bedrooms. I mean, 177 is the only one that I did 1 for 1. All the other ones I try to do 1 for 1 and 2 for 2. So I think the number of parking spaces being asked is appropriate, and especially given that the retail is open at night. So you're getting cars off the street to allow both.
Well, even at 2 per 2, you're still only needing 7 spaces if you do the math with me.
Yeah,
All right.
but you have visitors, you have other people.
Well,
that
okay,
are-
but now we're changing it to yet a different standard. Okay, thank you, Mr. Pecora. Anything
you.
else?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. All right, okay, anybody else from the commission? No.
So if you're actually gonna need to remove 2 spaces, Mr. Leroux, from the street?
That's what they've got, given the width of the driveway, and if they do 8 parking
They're showing
spaces.
about 2 spaces. Now, there's always possibility of adding 1 back, or, if sometimes when the driveway's installed, there may be an opportunity, but
If the driveway could be narrower, then you would only have to remove 1 space. But since you're doing an 8-space parking lot, I think then you have to do the double wide driveway. So if you had a 4-space parking lot, as we had suggested as a concept for them, you might only be losing 1 space, and they didn't like that idea because they were saying you're still not getting as many new net spaces. Okay, anything else?
How narrow would the driveway be at 4 spaces? 14 feet?
Don't remember.
probably, 10 to 12, 10 to 14 would be.
So there could be, there potentially could be more.
Yeah.
Or the on-street parking could be remade, or
I don't know if it can
I don't want
remain.
to sound like I'm speaking for the applicant here, but again, if the option is 8 spaces for the sake of 2, you know what I mean? That, I think there's an argument to be made that having on-site parking available at a greater number than the spaces lost on the street is probably a net benefit to the neighborhood, right?
Right. So, but you're not saying you necessarily, so you're adding 6 versus adding 2. Okay.
Right. The number, if you count, I know we're not supposed to include public parking, but again, the logistics.
we got
of
it.
You
All
know,
right. Okay. All right. Anybody else have any comments?
I just wanted to reiterate that currently there are 8 cars being used by the residents.
I know, but we can't. Yes, thank you, Mr. Hopper. But the problem is we got to try not to consider that. I think Mr. Pecora did a good job with saying this is how many bedrooms there are, because that's permanent. You could change your residence in a nanosecond. But Mr. Pecora said this is how many bedrooms there are, and that's the right way to put it. All right. I understand that people talk about the tight parking in Chickahominy. At the same time, I continue to be concerned about the fact that we are never going to get green space back if we lose it. And that concern remains in my mind, that what we give up is gone forever once we've paved it over. And that we have 2 letters from the public. One says basically we are too cart conscious and that we should consider our green spaces. And the other one says, yay, make more parking. And then, of course, we have Mr. Pecora. All right. So does anybody object to closing this application at this time?
No.
The Seeing no objection, this application is hereby closed. Thank you, Mr. Hopper.
Thank you.
Do you, we want to put a motion out there, Mr. McRae, and give it a shot and talk about it?
Yeah, let's try this because I think actually I think we talked about a couple of different things, and I want to be sure if we've got it all in one place. But let's get something teed up here then at least. Okay, so this is 140 Hamilton Avenue, PLPZ 2023 018 final site plan. Applicants seeking approval to construct an 8-space parking lot in the rear of the property on a 7,101 foot parcel located in the LBR2 zone, pursuant to section 613 to 6205 of the building zone regulation. The commission finds that the application does not conform to section 6137 of the building zone regulations, prohibiting entrances or exits from business or industrial uses opposite residential zones, where the lot containing the business zone or industrial use has frontage on a business zone. Section 155 and 150 require one space for 150 square foot of usable floor area for retail uses, plus one space for a residential unit in mixed use buildings. The applicant indicates there's approximately 1,704 square feet of gross commercial floor area. It's like equates to approximately 1,278 square feet usable floor area. Per section 6155 and 618 of the BZR, a total of 13 parking spaces are required. On-site parking is existing non-conforming. The addition of parking spaces to the site will reduce this nonconformity. Zoning issued comments 3.2.23 requiring resubmittal as the applicant does not meet the section 6137 of the BZR. Sewer division issued a comment memo dated 2/28 requesting the applicant submit a signed letter acknowledging receipt of their P&Z comments. Engineering issued comments on 3/30 indicating resubmittal prior to zoning building permit. And conservation issued comments, I think it was 3/28 indicating recommendations to the proposal. Wetlands issued permit needs question on 10/5/22 indicating no permit required. Therefore, motion to approve the application noting the following: per engineering comments prior to zoning permit, the applicant shall contact parking services for approval to eliminate those parking spaces on the south side of Charles Street, creating conflict with the proposed project. And prior to zoning permit, the applicant shall provide a sidewalk easement for review and approval by planning and zoning commission staff and Town of Greenwich Law Department. Okay.
Good.
Wait, let me, I've got a couple of different notes here. I want to kind of put some stuff out here we can actually discuss. The landscape plan shall be revised to indicate the proposed landscape and additional plantings in the remaining, in the east side. An additional tree of a heritage birch tree to the east side of the curb cut, adjacent to the first 4 spaces against the building. And this should be a, if not heritage birch, it should be a broadleaf deciduous tree. Okay, now to provide conformance with section 6137 of the BZR prohibiting entrances or exits from business or industrial use, residential zone, the applicant shall, let me put this out there, reduce the number of proposed parking spaces to 4 and provide appropriate signage installed at the curb cut.
Why don't you just start out with it as submitted? And I think.
As submitted for
yeah,
8, doesn't really matter. I just want to put something out
just
there.
don't reduce it. Just put it out there for
Okay.
the 8 spaces.
And
Which was
provide appropriate,
proposed.
right, provide appropriate signage installed at the curb cut indicating residential parking for 140 Hamilton Avenue only. All other parking is strictly prohibited. And the parking signage locations and signed copies shall be indicated on the final plan. And then I think actually if, depending on what we're doing with the number of spaces, if where they're reduced, then the curb cut should be reduced coincidentally with whatever the number would be.
Well, the other, what we could do is, let's just make the motion for as submitted. And then let's just ask in the
Okay, so-
notes that if it's possible to reduce the driveway width to spare an on-street parking, if the highway department or if highway department agrees, then they should do that and revise. the
So
site
you
plan
want to
accordingly.
narrow the curb cut as much as possible to save on-street parking.
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Yeah.
Then you save
Mhm.
the on-street parking. I mean, they're arguing that it is.
Okay, and that would be regardless of how many spaces are actually in the new parking lot.
Ask them. I don't know if highway would approve it. My guess is that they're gonna say no, that a parking lot for 8 cars is gonna have to have the big wide driveway, but we could ask.
Mhm,
Well, I
okay.
think- Sorry, and an other possible alternative would be that on-street parking could be restriped so that there is only, it's
Yeah.
2 as currently marked, but it could be different. Right.
Mhm.
They're
Okay.
actually not marked on the sheet now, are they?
No, I don't think so.
Well, marked or measured out, I guess
Yeah,
would be the.
not,
you know.
yeah,
Mhm.
so they'd have to figure it out, but if we could narrow the driveway to somehow spare one of the parking spots, then we could do that. Okay.
Right. I think
Um,
I think the biggest issue is that 6137 thing about having the driveway from
Okay.
across the street.
So with a motion is to approve as proposed, as submitted, which is for the 8 spaces with a modification to the landscape plan, which will get a sign off from staff. And then to reduce the driveway if possible, but still 8 spaces and with the appropriate residential signage. Ms. Jenkins, first I need a second. Sorry, I spaced. out.
Second,
Oh, Levy has seconded. Ms. Jenkins, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Levy,
aye.
Mr. McRae,
Nay.
Mr. Yeski. Wait, I goofed it. I goofed. It is Bob who is seated. Let me start that over again. I'm sorry, Mary.
That's right.
Mr. Barilak, how do you vote?
Same aye that Ms. Jenkins voted.
All right, Mr. Levy, same aye that
Aye.
he had before. Mr. McRae,
Nay.
Mr. Yeski,
Aye.
Albin is a nay. The motion fails to carry 3-2.
Aye.
Okay. So, let's talk about what we could do. Now we go back to, would you guys, what would it take to change our minds? Nick and self, or B, what reduction in the parking spaces Nick suggested 4 instead of 8? I don't know, what would we do? Is there a modification that we could agree to?
I think if we're
Mr.
looking at number of spaces,
Mhm,
to me, 4 would be okay.
mhm,
Could possibly live with 6,
okay,
and 6 being the removal of the 2 that are against Charles Street. To
okay,
give more of a landscape buffer to Charles Street.
okay. And what about, I have to look at it again, but I think that accomplishes the same objective, is to give them a little more backyard. Now, the applicant said, well, they don't use the backyard, but when I went and looked at it, it isn't the kind of backyard you want to use. It looks like it's barren. I mean, you wouldn't want to go out there much. Okay, I don't know who raised their hand first, so I'm going to just say, Mary, you can't talk right now because you're not seated. And then I'm going to say, Mr. Levy, go ahead. Sorry, Mary.
That's right.
I goofed it though.
Understood.
Mr. Levy,
I just want to make sure I understand your objection. So you're concerned about green space and the parking.
I'm
So-
concerned about green space, concerned
Okay.
about impervious surface. The letter from the public that we got, one of the letters was, we're so car focused. that we keep making parking and paving over everything.
Well,
And
but you know, what if there were 6 spaces instead of 4 spaces? And I didn't know.
or of 8 spaces, I mean, instead of 8 spaces, what would we be agreeable to? That's the question I asked you guys. 8 spaces didn't fly. Could we agree on something less? Nick says he'll agree to 4 and possibly could be tucked into 6. Would you be willing to try it with less than 8?
Well, I'm fine with less than 8, and I wouldn't mind having more green space. But taking parking off of the street is a good idea. So I feel like there's a kind of give and take there. So it's kind of hard to evaluate completely.
Right.
But I do appreciate that having more off-street parking is probably a good idea.
Yeah,
for
I
the
think
site.
we all recognize that, and we all recognize that this has a residential use. Under our regulations, as Mr. Hopper pointed out, the minimum required would be 4. So the question is, do we do 4 or 6, and what could people agree to? Just because, you know, what could people agree to? It is tight for parking, we know that. We would require 1. I've heard builders talk about thinking in terms of 1.6 per unit, because that's kind of how the bedrooms average out. So, you know, maybe we would do 6, but what do you guys think we could buy into? I agree that it's not bad to have parking. I just didn't want to totally lose all green space, because once it's gone, it's gone.
Listen,
Yeah. Mr. Yeski, you're shaking your head at me.
I don't know where you're going with this, but 3 people voted for 8. You 2 voted against. What will make you 2 happy? 6? I mean,
I'll
why
do
you got
4.
everybody else?
I mean, I wanted 4, but I think I could get to 6. That's what Nick said too.
Okay, so someone
Mr.
should
Barilak.
propose 6.
Okay,
Well-
Mr. Barilak.
Yeah, I to me, in this particular neighborhood, as much as I'm a fan of green space too, parking is more important than green space. I think this neighborhood would be benefited more by 8 parking spaces than by a tiny little bit of green space that isn't going to be used.
I propose that Nick reword the proposal to 6 spaces, and we'll take another vote.
Nick, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, we can do that.
But no, give thoughts.
Yeah, because I think actually what I'm seeing is I've got an even layout of 4 spaces and 4 spaces. If we're doing 6, that's 3 and 3, and then the leftover spaces to the north and to the south, you know, to that are removed, that area that's left over can be split evenly between the north and the south to give more buffer to north and south. Okay, that way we can have a little bit more landscaping on Charles Street and to the other property. And a caveat to that, actually, in another situation, even to the back on the landscape plan, rather than have that long line of just the arborvitae, maybe they're staggered to create a better buffer between the east and the west as well. So I would say if we did 6 and we split the difference of whatever's left over between north and south to get more landscaping in.
Well, I would agree to that.
Okay.
I mean, the idea is to have a successful plan, and I think the way that they've presented their green space seems to be more expedient than very concerned with being successful.
Okay. And you know, my comment on this is just, if I tell you why I get stopped on the street, Dennis gets stopped more, everybody recognizes him. But why I get stopped on the street, people don't say to me, oh, could you make more off-street parking and pave stuff and make more parking lots? People never say that. They say, why are you letting everybody tear down our trees and our green? That's what I hear. So I'm responding to, hey, it's the first priority in our POCD. And I know this isn't a POCD related decision, but I'm willing to make a compromise. My original thought was 4, but I'm willing to settle at 6. Nick, give it a shot.
Okay, so I think where we were, engineering, okay, to provide conformance with 6137 of the BZR prohibiting entrances and exits from the business or industrial use opposite residential zone. The applicant shall reduce the number of proposed parking spaces to 6 and provide appropriate signage installed at the curb cut indicating residential parking for 140 Hamilton Avenue only. All other parking is strictly prohibited. And the parking signage locations and sign copy shall be indicated on the final plan. I'm not too sure. Should we talk about the curb cut reduced if can, or?
And same
are
thing,
we-
same language. The curb cut, the proposed curb cut should be discussed with
Mhm.
highway to be reduced as much as possible to in
And
an
is,
attempt
is it
to.
more plausible now that we've reduced the parking?
I think so. Let's give it a shot and let's talk to highway and see. I mean, and maybe Patrick can talk to highway and tell them, look, we're trying to save the on-street parking. This place is tight. We had to drag 2 of the commissioners kicking and screaming because they hate giving up green space. And let's see if we can get them to
So
agree.
18
And then-
to possible 14 to possible
Yeah.
12,
Yeah,
depending
something
on
like
what
that.
DPW
I don't
comments
think
on.
it
Okay.
needs to be like a really flowing 2-way driveway for how small this parking lot is. And then landscaping signed off by staff. And
Yeah, because I think actually it's there's going to be 4.5, 5 feet either side, so they can actually increase the landscaping buffer.
Mhm.
And the only thing I would suggest is actually if they're going to do the thujas against the property line, stagger them so they grow together,
yeah,
as opposed to just a big line. If they're staggered, they actually become a lot more denser. And I think in respect to the neighbors to both locations, actually trying to create that buffer, which is a part of our new landscape regs, it would be probably most appreciated.
Is there a
Okey-doke.
direction the commission would want to see for the area that's being captured by the loss of the 2 spaces?
I would say the additional canopy tree. It'll give it actually the additional canopy tree, and the canopy trees on Charles Street will give them more room to grow. And I would think
One more
actually in the
tree.
4.5, excuse me.
So, sorry, so you're asking for one more, or the commission's asking for one more tree, and then hedges or whatever is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and then the
Skip laurel.
thuja, yeah, the skip laurel or the arborvitae if it's been already agreed with the neighbor. But just to make sure that the arborvitae is planted in such a way that it's staggered so it grows together and creates the intent of the
Yeah, I mean, it
screening.
really needs to be well spaced and not put together like a hedge.
Yeah.
These are trees. They're not. I know that evergreens tend to group together, but if you want them to grow well, you still need to make sure that they are well spaced.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Okay, you guys. Kind of done with the motion, kind of ready for a second.
Second,
Mr. Levy has seconded. You said all outstanding staff departments and DP. Okay, Mr. Barilek, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. McRae?
Aye.
Okay,
Excuse
that
me.
was quiet. Yeski?
Aye.
Levy?
I
Albin is also aye, and with that, the motion passes 5-0. All right, we have lived through that. And we go on to the next one, 265 Bruce Park Avenue LLC, Valerie Burns. This is a 2-story, 2-family residence with the parking in the required front yard. We saw it 2 weeks ago, was it? And on this one, you're still good, right, Barilek?
Yeah, I'm good until 7:30.
Okay, Madam Jenkins.
Yes, I see it as well.
Yes, you can seat for Yeski. Yeski, you missed this one last time, right?
Right.
Yeah, so yes, you can seat for Yeski. I am crossing him off.
Thank you.
Barilek for Low. and Jenkins. Okay. I'm gonna send you this, Patrick, because this time I wrote it down because we're not catching it on the agenda and then I don't remember. Alrighty, applicant is Mr. Burns. You got him? No, and Patrick, I can't get him in. It's not, well, there you got it. And Miss Cullen, if you can hear us, we're probably, hopefully about 25 minutes away from going back to the public record.
Okay, thank you.
All righty.
And then I
Mr.
believe
Burns?
we have Lou.
Yeah, and I can't
Yeah,
remember
Lou-
what,
Lou keeps raising his hand and lowering it, and then it moves him up and down the list. So just we'll get you, Lou.
I think I got it.
which, and who, okay, all right. And Mr. Burns is representing them?
Hi, no, I'm one of the co-owners.
Okay. All right, and there's Lou. You are the architect, right? Luis.
Yes, Lou is the architect.
Okay, Luis, you turned your video off. You had it on and then you went away, but now
Okay.
you're unmuted, which is good.
Okay, let me,
Okay, Luis, yeah. Okay, now you unmute yourself one more time.
there you go. Sorry
Okay, you're
about that.
perfect. And Wayne is not speaking?
I am here.
Okay, good. Okay, can you just, oh, well, it's not on the public record, but let me just fix your names. I forgot your name.
Yeah, my name is Louis Garcia. I'm the
That's right.
architect
I'm
director for the
sorry.
project. And we're here again today after being here 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
We had requested that a landscape drawing be done in order to be able to cover some of the front parking that we're proposing for the project. And since 2 weeks ago, we have done that and provided that to Bianca and the board and the commission. I think that was at that time, that was pretty much the only requirement that the commission was seeking for us to provide for the hearing.
Yes. Okay.
There was one question on the plans, which was the height of the stone. There's like a stone pillar sort of at the end of the landscaping. I don't think it was specified in the plans, but I think something between 4 and 6 feet, depending on the height of the shrubs, would be appropriate.
Yeah, we're thinking more like 4 feet in order to make sure that we're not obstructing any views. I also spoke to the person that did the landscaping, Bill Meredith. I'm pretty sure he's also on. And we talked about the possibility of moving all the landscaping within the front setback, if that's a requirement that the commission wants to us to adhere to.
If which part was a condition that you want us to adhere to?
If it's helpful for sightlines to move the shrubs away from the street and towards the parking
You
spots.
may have to because of the sight lines. I think we would just let you figure it out. You've got them there.
Well,
and you're
it's
also in
not-
the right of way, right?
Yeah, it's, you have, if you move it back into the property line, okay, beyond the property line, then you're gonna, we're probably a little bit better with that. Because right now, all of the good stuff of your landscape plan is in the town's right of way. So that in effect, actually, to get approval of that, you need to talk to the town tree warden and Department of Public Works, Highway Division.
Yeah,
Thank you, Bianca.
we can definitely move that. As you can see on this drawing, there is space between the parking space and there's a low lawn area. We can always push everything closer to the parking and take out anything that's beyond the front setback. Yes.
Well, I think that's the thing I'm seeing here is that all of the good stuff of your landscape plan is in the right of way. So if you were going to move stuff back, I would take it as proposed and move everything inside the property line. What are the intent of the piers? The stone entry piers? Is that just a decorative element?
Decor item, correct. Yep. I mean, we can also leave those out if you wanted to.
If you're going to be moving the landscape plan, that might be a better idea, is to
Yeah.
eliminate those so you can actually, the two trees. Although I'm not too sure I appreciate dogwoods, the two trees would be critical. I see you have the skip laurel here as well, which is great. So I think actually kind of, understanding that that might be something either you can consider now, or if you want to put it in the right of way, you have to just get the approval.
I think
Okay.
we're happy to move it back towards the parking spots. So that makes sense.
Okay. Also, just want to make sure that you're aware, actually, that you have conditions prior to zoning permit for sewer division.
Yeah, I have the civil engineer. I'm pretty sure he's present, and he can probably speak in reference to that.
I don't think we need to kind of discuss it. It's just want to kind of put that on the record that actually they have conditions
Okay.
for
Yeah.
your zoning permit.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? I wanted to ask you, Mr. Garcia, when I walked the property this weekend, there's a pipe that's on the hill behind where you've excavated the foundation. That's just something you tossed up there, or is that is that some sort of drain line that was there at some point?
Tell the truth, I'm not really sure what that is. The contractor can probably help us to respond to that. He's also on Zoom meeting.
Okay, and his name is?
Name is Robert Weber. Robert, are you on? Guess not.
No, he's not. Okay, it's all right.
I would think that's a temporary. I don't believe that was
Looked
there.
like somebody
Yeah.
had tossed it up, but I couldn't get near it, so it was just curious. It's very steep. There's Mr. Weber. Mr. Weber, that pipe that's sitting up there, that's just sitting there?
Yes, that's just some garbage.
Garbage, okay. All right, got it. Okay, thank you, sir. All
You're
right, any other questions for anybody on the commission?
We don't have any questions?
No, from the commission.
Oh.
Anyway, so we had the issue with the right of way. It's really what you just, wherever you have to move the landscaping, I think we're just condition it that way so that
Oh.
you do what you can do. One thing that I mentioned to the commission yesterday was that I drove up and down the street a couple of times and there is no parking in the front yard generally. There weren't people parked there. And I purposely went over the weekend to see. But also there's not that much landscaping in the front. So what you're doing will probably look very nice when you get it in. All right, if there's no questions from the commission, do I have any comments from the public? This is 265 Bruce Park Avenue. Going once for questions from the public. No, okay, no questions or comments from the public. Does anybody object to closing this application at this time? All right, this application is hereby closed. And Mr. McRae, might I have a motion?
Mhm.
All right,
Hold on 1 second, please. Okay, this is 265 Bruce Park Avenue, PLPZ 2023-053 final site plan. Applicant seeking approval to construct a new two-family dwelling, patio, and driveway with proposed parking in the front yard on a 12,383 square foot property in the R6 zone. Commission finds that planning and zoning staff referred the application to the commission for review. The parking in the front yard setback, Bruce Park Avenue has a deficient right-of-way of 40 feet, whereas 50 feet is the standard. Per section 203B, the front yard setback is required to be increased by 5 feet to 30 feet. The applicant has submitted a landscape screening plan indicating new vegetation to be planted in the right-of-way, town of Greenwich right-of-way, per section 6155. And the applicant is providing one garage space and 2 outdoor spaces per unit for a total of 6 spaces on site. Zoning issue comments on 3/15/23 indicating proposal meets the requirements of the BZR and endorse the project for a zoning permit sign off. Sewer issue comments dated 3/14/23 requesting the applicant submit a signed letter acknowledging receipt of P&Z comments. Engineering issue comments on 3/15 indicating approval for zoning building permit. And wetlands issued a permit need questionnaire on 6/21 indicating no permit required. Therefore, a motion to approve the application noting the following, that the sewer division comments the applicant has submitted the acknowledgement letter dated 3/15/23. And then prior to zoning permit, the applicant shall revise the landscapes plan so as to relocate all of the proposed landscaping to inside of the property line and remove the proposed stone piers. And the applicant shall
And that shall be subject to
Staff review.
P&Z staff review.
Okay. And the applicant shall address any and all remaining staff or departmental issues.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Levy has seconded. Mr. McRae, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Yes, nope, sorry. I'm doing this over again. Mr. Barilak,
Aye.
Mrs. Jenkins,
Aye.
Mr. Levy.
Aye.
Albin is also aye, and with that, the motion passes 5-0. All righty, thank you, gentlemen. Best of luck with your project.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you.
The commute's good, right? All righty, next, we are now going to open the public hearing. Hello, Ms. Cullen. You're all set. You can hear us. If somebody doesn't identify themselves or you can't tell, just holler at us. With the public hearing, we go to application number 7, Fred N. Durante for final re-subdivision at 328 Palmer Hill Road. Seated on this application are Levy, McRae, Yeski, Barilak, and Albin.
Good evening again, Madam Chair, members of the commission. For the record, Tom Hegney on behalf of the applicant. The bit of deja vu, just like the one I presented to you earlier this evening. We had a preliminary subdivision, or in this case, re-subdivision approval. We went and got a variance, so we wouldn't need to put the driveway in the access way to Neighborly Way, because Neighborly Way, it may be very neighborly, but it's also very narrow. And we received comments from you on the preliminary approval, and a couple of things, and one that came up at the briefing yesterday, question on the open space parcel. The reason that we located it where it is the comment at the prior hearing was commission recommends offering open space area along Palmer Hill Road under the final subdivision request. This is part of a previous subdivision where 15% of the total lot areas was set aside. And this is what I call it, the bonus open space. And it is the closest part of the property to Palmer Hill Road, which is why we showed it on the map. And I was talking with Mr. DeAndrea earlier today, and there is the access way also for this that we won't be using, so we can probably landscape that as well, with one caveat that that's where our sewer, water, and electric lines are. So there could be some landscaping there, but not something large that would interfere with the utilities servicing the new house. The other thing that Mr. DeAndrea mentioned is it does have a meeting with engineering.
Okay.
On it's that area that's shaded, which is the open space parcel that we had proposed. We can extend that into that access way because there will be no construction there except for the utilities. So we thought that was something additional near Palmer Hill Road that could be added to the plan. Mr. DeAndrea has the meeting tomorrow afternoon with engineering to go over the various items. He did not see any issue with any of them that were
Okay.
brought up. And again, my point on driveway easements, it's more of a legal than an engineering issue, but we'll discuss that with the town engineer. And we provided an updated sewer letter based on the sewer comments we got yesterday. And I think that covers it. We'll be back to you as soon as we've resolved things with engineering.
Sounds like a plan. Does anybody have any comments or questions on this?
Mr. Hegney, the extension of the open space into the access way, is the access way a zoning issue for your access to your technical solution to the access to Palmer Hill Road?
It's technically required to
frontage.
be in, it establishes access to a street, which is
Right.
required under the regulations.
Okay. Does
So
that get
you're
kinda
not really gonna
conflicted?
use it. That's what they were telling me yesterday, because I
Right.
didn't remember that whole neighborly way
it's-
discussion. You're not really gonna use it, so you could landscape it.
Yes.
Yeah, but see that to me, that gets a weird conflict is that I have now open space in an access way. So I've got a piece of property that's doing two things at the same time.
Mhm.
That's true. It's a good point, Mr. McRae. Probably just showing a landscape plan for it rather than dedicating it as open space as we have with the triangular shaded piece that's on the screen now. Because we do have to actually own it for it to provide legal access to Palmer Hill Road.
Right.
But
Okay.
I think our thought was that it is an area that could be landscaped.
Right. So physically it would look like open space, but technically it's actually the access way for R1B.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. Other question is that as proposed on the site development plan, you've got driveway access up high, you've got the building up high, and you're building on top of the existing stone wall that's out there.
If we could go to the next slide, please, Bianca, that shows that.
So we have an existing wall, existing retaining wall, the new retaining wall is on top of that. So is that existing retaining wall suitable to actually hold everything back, or is that going to have to be reconstructed?
I don't know if Mr. DeAndrea has looked at that or whether it's going to need to be rebuilt rather than just added to.
Okay.
We're not, this is not the footprint of the proposed dwelling that's actually going to be constructed. This is a placeholder to show that it works, it meets the setbacks. It's an adequate footprint for a development. It shows where the driveway is. But whoever is going to develop this, and it won't be Mr. Durante, he's looking to market it, will come in with their own house design, and that will have to be something that staff looks at and engineering looks at that time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anybody else?
Madam Chair, if I could just ask Mr. Hegney, is there any reason why returning to the commission for use of that access way would not be a welcome condition?
Well, they're gonna have to come back anyway, right? Because they don't have drainage.
Well, I'm just saying that, part of the commission's, purview with the subdivision is access. So if that was to change from the plan as proposed, I think it would be just, I think it would be appropriate for the commission to just state that would be their
Make a
intent.
finding, that we would have to make a finding on, if we were to approve this, that we would have to make a finding that we recognize that the access way exists, and whatever.
But will not be
Mr. LaRoe,
used for the actual physical access, because that's going to be done at a at frankly, a better location on the property.
Right. So it's addressing the one RB access way. Just
Okay.
similar
That's what
to
you're
the other
saying.
one. Yeah.
Patrick,
the-
what
the-
you're suggesting is that we're going to make a finding when we make a motion?
I think I just don't, I wanted to hear from the applicant if there's any complication from doing that, because I don't think there is,
Gotcha.
you know.
I don't think so either.
Okay.
And just for the record, that is something, a criteria when we talk about applications that come back to the commission or not. If you're moving the driveway from, the left from one street to the other, those type of things, we typically would see that as an action that the commission would have to opine on anyways. But I'd just like to make sure that everyone's aware of it.
So maybe that's something to keep in the back of the mind. If this goes to development someday in the future, it would come back to us just so we could take a look at it.
I think it should.
Why don't we? Okay. So
I would think it would just need to go to staff as
Of
part
course
of
you
the
would.
normal sign-off process.
well, you know what? You can just stop talking and just say, what would I say now? And we'll say, I bet this is what the attorney's going to say. Okay, so let's see how it plays out after you get the drainage, because it also kind of depends on what DPW gets everything resolved, and then we can figure out how to word it.
All right, very good.
It seems it seems a minor issue as long as you're providing a separate and better access. And it's expensive for the applicant to have to go through the approval process with us, I expect. So let's see if we can get to a resolution. All right.
Very well.
Okay. Any comments from the public on this application? I'm seeing a hand up, but I can't tell whose it is.
Mr. DeAndrea, actually.
Oh,
Mr. Hegney, would you like Mr. DeAndrea to speak?
Always.
All right.
okay. Mr. DeAndrea, if you would like to speak.
I did have my hand up in case there was a question that I could answer.
Oh,
I need not add anything to what Mr. Hegney has so adequately and professionally summarized.
thank you, Mr. DeAndrea. All right. Okay. So we have no other public comment. Do we have anything else from the commission? All right. Being that, does anyone object to closing this application at this time?
I think you need to
We
have
can't
us
close it.
go to engineering.
Oh,
tomorrow.
yeah. I knew that. I just,
Did you?
yeah.
I do like the thought process, though.
I know it was good. You talked me into it, Mr. Hegney. I was like, okay, we'll just fix that access way. All right, we will continue
If I'd
this
only known how
application.
effective that was.
Very effective. It's never worked before though, so I don't know if you can chance it again. All right. Okay, so we will continue this application. And I will see you when you return, Mr. Hegney. Unless you want to stay and talk to us about ADUs.
I will leave that to your own.
All right, I don't think it's
deliberation.
going to be a long discussion. All righty, our next application is Town of Greenwich Planning and Zoning Department staff to extend the moratorium on our regulation 699, which is the conversion to ADUs. And one of the things we need to do is that we're going to stop calling it conversion because we already have language in it that allows you to build from new. And so you can build a house and have an ADU in it. And we've already put the language in there, but it's still called conversion. So that's something that we've drafted the fix. Mr. LaRoe, Mr.
Thank you,
Town
Madam Chair.
Planner, please go ahead.
Madam Chair. This is unfortunately, I'll just say an extension of time for a moratorium that the commission adopted at the end of last year. That time period is set to expire on the 13th of April, and we need a little more time to craft language and prepare some drafts that will be discussed at public forum related to accessory dwelling units. As you may recall, or everyone who's listening, in September of last year, there was a public act put forth before the RTM regarding statewide zoning minimum requirements for accessory dwelling units. Essentially, it was 1,000 square feet everywhere in the state, and there was an opt-out clause, and the town, I think correctly so, chose to opt out because our, at that time, open accessory dwelling unit, text language was more robust, more, I guess, all encompassing for the needs of Greenwich and not so overburdensome that it was difficult to develop and opened up the, I guess, accessory dwelling units on all lots where that may not be plausible. And so the commission felt that our regulations were better, and we just wanted to tweak a few things to continue to make it so. Unfortunately, again, we ran out of time before the moratorium ended to present that to the public, but we are close to working on that and having that done. Madam Chair, you brought up at the briefings, the work session yesterday, that there are a number of things in the State House right now that may also affect the outcome or enhance these options. And we also would like to allow some time for that to have its chance to get through and then be incorporated into these regulations as well.
Sadly, one of those bills died this morning, yesterday, sorry. And that was the one for the tax abatement for people who did affordable ADUs. However, I heard from the legislator who had proposed the bill, and she offered to work on it during their break next year. So maybe during, the break this summer. So that would be great. But, and we could approach the BET on it as well. Is if you did an affordable accessory dwelling unit, could you get a tax abatement for it? But I'd like to ask you guys a question, because Patrick's got a whole bunch of language sitting there that's been drafted. So asking everybody, right now, we restrict to affordable, disabled, and senior for our ADUs. We don't allow them in the R6. First thing that we'd been talking about is, should we go ahead and allow them in the R6, but you could only have one thing. You either have an ADU or you have a two-family, because the R6 is as of right two-family. Should we do that? Does anybody have any strong sentiment at this moment about allowing ADUs in the R6, as long as it's either a single-family home or an ADU or a two-family house? Peter Levy.
Yes, it makes a lot of sense to allow ADUs, and I think that it's just a way of preserving the existing housing stock.
Housing stock.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a good point. Is you got a house, you could add an ADU without tearing down and making it a two-family.
But then again, as you say, if it is a two-family, the necessity for
then you don't get
ADU,
no, you don't get one anymore.
Doesn't seem to be there.
No, you don't get one anymore. You get no more than 2 dwelling units on a lot in the R6. Full stop.
Right. I think actually if it's single family with an ADU only, or it's a two-family, one of them is an ADU.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something
I think
like
in that case, to me, the only issue I would have prior to actually saying that might be a great idea is to get into the weeds of a situation where I have a single family. I'm going to create an accessory dwelling unit that actually now makes the single family a full-fledged two-family.
Well, you can't.
It's not an accessory unit. It's actually, I created a two-family without going through the two-family approval process. You know what I mean?
Well, the two-family is as of right in the R6.
Yeah, but I'm talking about
there's
actually
no approval process.
No, it's that okay, I'm going to create a two-family residence. Okay, and the fastest way I can kind of skip all and cut corners is actually make one of them an ADU. And my thought was that the issue I had was that ADU is not an accessory dwelling unit, but
I got you.
Another primary dwelling unit.
Okay, but see, here's the thing. The standards for the ADUs are going to say no more than, Patrick, I always forget, 35%?
I think it's 30 under the current reg.
And we were talking about 35. So no more than 35% of the current house. So it's a lot less dense, and they will both be as of right. In fact, the accessory dwelling unit may be harder to get. But remember, 2-family is as of right as long as the lot's the right size. You don't have to get any approvals. The only thing is sewer is different for an ADU. You can't require an extra sewer connection. I think that's the only difference. And the parking's a little different, but what we would do, Nick, is have the parking in the R6 be consistent. Now, next question, that's a bigger question. Just off the top of your heads, if you could write the regulation, would you want it to continue to be restricted to those 3 categories of people? Or would you guys throw it wide open?
I am really tempted to throw it open, but I do like the idea of promoting this affordable. So, I think that maybe there's a way of couching it somehow. Maybe if it, you somehow create a section B about if you're going to, if it's not going to be this, then it can be something else.
So one of the things that, and the person is in the public right now, so he's going to come and speak. It's Joe Rossetti. He's on school building committee with Dennis on the CMS. One of the things he suggested, I'm just throwing this out there for you guys, is what if we gave some sort of FAR bonus for people who did an affordable ADU? Now, the problem with that is then they build to that new FAR. And if they stopped having the affordable, so we'd have to think that through because,
Yes, see,
Nick's
but there it is. There it is.
I know.
It's out. I'm giving you a floor area bonus.
Right.
And then what am I getting it back? I'm getting an affordable unit, but now it's a de facto 2-family residence. As opposed to, it was supposed to be an accessory dwelling unit.
No, it's still an
Well, part of
accessory
that is-
dwelling unit because it's still 30% of the whole building or the 35% of the whole building.
Why don't you let it be 40% or 45% if it's affordable and make it affordable in perpetuity?
Or let
Madam
the
Chair,
person have more FAR and go ahead, Mr. Leroux.
Are you suggesting in this discussion that it would be over the max gross floor area allowed on the lot, or just you would be able to have a larger accessory dwelling unit? Do you understand?
No, the comment, okay, hold on a second. Mr. Rossetti, I just enabled you to talk.
Actually, before we get on with this, would it be better if we had this as an offline workshop
Well,
to get
what
into
I'd
these
like
issues?
to do is just get some broad brush sentiments from you guys so that we can give you a draft that we can then have a workshop about.
All right,
So
in
just
that
quickly,
spirit-
what do you care about?
In that spirit, I share Peter's desire or strong inclination to open it wide open and would encourage affordability by giving some kind of extra benny. We can talk about what it would be.
Okay, I
But
like
now,
it.
can
Good.
that be, I mean, you were talking about what the state might do, and there might be some kind of tax incentive. So, I mean, I think that would be an appropriate way to delineate
It
one
would
from the other.
Be awesome. And I wrote the legislator this morning, and I asked her why her bill died, and I haven't heard back from her. My guess is because she also had it restricted to seniors, which makes no sense to me at this point, to senior ownership. Okay, so Nick, it would not be a full 2-family. You would restrict it to 35% of the existing structure. But I know Peter Lowe, when we mentioned to him, we were debating this question, he said, throw it wide open. Dennis, throw it wide open, take out all the situations.
Yeah,
And
I
let-
think I would throw it wide open.
Okay.
And I think actually the Bob's suggestion of the
A Benny.
an affordability issue with a
Benny.
benefit in perpetuity now starts to make sense because it's starting to actually become a real benefit to the
Exactly.
town itself. It's we call it the hidden housing, right? That's what it's called.
Yeah.
And what is the real incentive to actually now create that and put it on the book so we can actually start understanding and counting these things.
Okay, so I think that's enough to go on that we have Mary. I know you feel a little differently, so why don't you go ahead and share quick?
I'm not sure I feel differently as much as, excuse me, I really like the idea of the incentive being in perpetuity, because one of the concerns I have is that the current regulation has an awful lot of bells and whistles that require staff and follow-up and sorts of things that are going to burden it. And it seems to me that if you're going to allow people to have something that can't really be taken away once you've given it to them, the idea of the in perpetuity on the affordability sounds really good to me, just from an administrative simplicity point of view. And
okay.
Wide open is fine. There are natural restrictions on this in terms of it has to obviously be smaller than the major house. So you're not turning it in, you may be turning it into something that has resemblance to two-family, but there's obviously a major residence and then something else that's smaller.
Okay.
And then not visible at all.
And then just so you guys, to remind you guys, the way our reg is right now, we allow more square footage because we kind of figured we have bigger houses. But it's still got to be no more than 35%, I think it is. And that's still more than the rest of the state is doing. But again, it would be subsidiary. But when it's a separate unit, it's a separate building, we are right on the state standard and we want to keep it smaller because we don't, who said hidden housing? You want to keep it hidden. Okay, so we have, everybody pretty much is leaning to opening it wide, taking out the disabled, senior and affordable but continuing to work on a way of doing a Benny for the affordable. And if Bob, if you have any brilliant ideas, I think a tax abatement's going to be hard.
Idea.
What?
I said, I've never had a brilliant idea in my life.
Okay, well, if anybody has an idea, I think getting a tax abatement from the BET is going to be tough in this climate, but it would have been the coolest thing. The bill we were looking at mandated it at the state level, and that may have been why it died in planning and development, because that's just like too much Hartford and telling you what to do. Mr. Rossetti, as a member of the public, do you wish to speak? You just need to unmute. No. Okay. All right. Maybe he walked away and that's why. All right. So that's direction enough. I think Pat has a lot of language done, but we were debating where to go with it. And then the one thing we did want to do is recognize how tight the parking is in the R6 and the R7 and potentially treat those differently, which I think does make sense. Okay. All righty. And then Mr. Rossetti left. Okay. With that, is there any further public comment? Again, this is on the moratorium. No. All right. Does anybody object to closing this application at this time?
Hand up.
No.
Hand up, hand up. Wait, where's the hand?
Top of the list here, sorry.
I don't have it. I see.
6412 is the phone number.
You know, the phone numbers aren't showing for me. You want to go ahead and enable them?
I just allowed them to talk, yeah.
Okay. Oh, they went away? There. Okay, 6412, go ahead if you know how to unmute.
There you go.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is Joe Rossetti. Thank you for letting me participate.
Oh, okay, there you go.
I kept on hearing you and I go, anyway, thank you for letting me in.
Well,
I do
both your
appreciate-
computer and your phone are here. That's the confusing, and I had enabled your computer.
Thank you.
Okay,
sorry
all
for
right,
the
go ahead.
I appreciate everybody considering this issue. I know you've been thinking about it many days and years, I guess. But anyway, just my 2 cents. I kind of kept it very simple, and I think you certainly got the message. I thought just keeping the regulations as is and just allowing a variance, if you will, I guess you might say, for the FAR requirements to allow the affordable apartment would be beneficial. I only have really one question, and I didn't quite understand the in perpetuity business.
Well, the problem is if you give someone the FAR benefit and then they build to that new max FAR, and then they say, oh gosh, I don't really like having an affordable unit. They keep the benefit and you no longer have the affordable unit. So we were trying to work our way around it.
Right now, it's a deed restriction for 10 years, I think, right?
Right, but you would get the FAR, you would go to that new max FAR, and that lasts 100 years.
Oh, I see. So the town or the P&Z wants that for 100 years or forever, as opposed to encumbering the property for 10 or 15 or 5 years or so.
Because why would we give you an 100-year benefit in exchange for a 10-year affordability restriction? But we could figure something out. Maybe, I know Bob in the.
You give it to him now. You give it to him now.
Give what now to whom?
You give the affordable housing to whoever can build affordable housing now.
Right.
The benefit for 10 years.
Right, but then the problem, yes, but that's allowed now. The problem is if we give you an FAR bonus, you add on a family room, and then you decide at the end of 10 years not to have the affordable unit, you aren't going to tear down that family room.
Oh, yeah, I see that. I don't know. I'm just trying to encourage.
Right, no, I get
people
it. I get it.
to build.
We're going to make
Okay.
Bob Barilak think about this because he's good at thinking of incentives, right? So,
I appreciate everybody open up.
so we're
the
going to
minds a
try
little
to
bit.
figure something out. If we could do a tax abatement, a property tax abatement, that would be the easiest.
Very good. Thank you for consideration. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Rossetti. Okay, so we can close this application? I mean, yes, we can close this application. Does anybody object to closing it at this time?
No.
I have no excuse for being tired, folks. All right. All right. Lisa,
Kelly, that's the end of our public hearing.
that's the end of the public hearing. Kelly, thank you. Ms. Cullen, thank you so much for coming.
You're
And we'll
welcome.
see you soon.
Thank you. Okay, good night.
All righty.
Just the,
Okey-doke. Now we go on to our last item, which is a discussion item, Greenwich Place, also known as LCAL, for a pre-app review at 0 Western Junior Highway. And this is to do the pool, to rebuild the pool and a new clubhouse and some other associated changes. And Mr. Bristol.
Yes, good evening. My name's Christopher Bristol, representing the applicant, which I'm not going to repeat, Elcor something or other, the owning entity of Greenwich Place. As the application of pre-application states, they are planning to renovate and expand the community room, the clubhouse, if you will, in the apartment complex, and reconfigure the pool and expand the sort of the pool, amenity area. It's been neglected. It's definitely needing of some upgrading. And they're doing that. It's actually pretty engineering wise. It's a pretty tricky little thing. There's a sewer line and drainage lines going underneath the existing pool. So that's those are going to have to be dealt with. Our project engineer Tony DeAndrea secured a wetlands permit already. Has been in close contact with engineering and the sewer department about all the moving parts that are necessary. So we're well on our way. Toward along the project. We're actually scheduled with ARC tomorrow, so they're going to be reviewing the architecture and the landscaping, etc., landscaping and lighting. So we're in pretty good shape. I will say this though, is that the height, we're actually going higher than what's existing, and due to the grade plane, because the building is sort of set into the hill and it's a hole basically, that we're going to need a height variance. We're going to exceed the 25-foot height max for accessory structure. So we're going to have to go to PZBA to get that resolved.
Okay. All right,
But
that's
other
unfortunate.
than that, I mean, I think everything else is like I said, it's almost more Tony's problem, given all the different engineering things that are going on.
Engineering issues, but it's from what I understand, you've worked with the sewer department, you're talking to engineering. All right, okay, I had one little question. I understand you have been talking to sewer, so that was tricky, having to dig out maybe at the transfer station, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not sure what. I mean, there's going to be significant earthwork, you know. Were we referring to the question about having soil testing and such, John?
I was gonna ask you something. Do you guys have any reason to believe that there is any kind of contamination given your proximity to Western Middle and the dump and the transfer station?
No, I mean, I actually, Tony, who I think you left for another engagement, but we had talked about that a little bit earlier. And it was his opinion that there wasn't an issue, given the topographical differences, et cetera. But I understand that engineering brought it up, so that may be the point of a current conversation between Tony and DPW.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so they must have, so they must have.
I think Mr. Paredes may have brought it up as early as today or something like that. So it may appear in an engineering comment, and I know that he discussed it a little bit with Tony, although I don't know exactly what. I think it has to deal with the construction phasing, or how they're doing the excavation or something like that. But well, I can come in with more information with the final.
Okay, all right. I was just curious. Everything else looked wonderful. The buildings look very nice. If you guys aren't familiar, it's really amazing. It's what, 236 units?
Yeah. I think it's a lot. Actually, I'll tell you when
built in 75. You guys.
When I first started, when I think Antares was purchasing it at the time, we held it for a little bit. We actually did a zoning opinion for the title insurance policy of that purchase, and it was quite a feat. I went and looked at almost all the COs, all the everything there. I was in the permit records room for many hours. It was a thing.
Yeah, and it did have no, it didn't, because it predated 830G, and you never had to do affordable, right?
Correct.
Darn, it's just so painful to see something, such a nice size development not having
And
any
it was done in
affordable.
pieces too. I mean, it was done sort of a patch here, a patch there. But I mean, I think it worked well for the situation.
So Barlock, if you ever have money,
That's never going to happen.
I think actually this development and
Greenwich Oaks.
Yeah, that one.
Putnam Green
planned
and
it out actually.
Weaver's Hill.
Yeah, planned out in terms of an issue where it works with the grades because it's all built on ledge, and the units kind of are detached. They're tucked in. So I think a lot of the success was actually born out of let's not blast stuff and make a mess of things. Let's just kind of squeeze in units that we can.
Probably a lot of field adjustments.
Mr. Bristol, I've got two questions. Sure. On the site plan, you've got the fire feature area, the dining area, and then artificial turf. What's the artificial turf all about?
I think it might be like a putting green or something like that. I don't know. I mean, I'd have to look at the landscape plan, which we're probably going to go over tomorrow night.
Okay. And
then
I
could have more detail. Hold on, I could pull up the landscape plan, see if I can see what's there.
well, you can
That's
do
okay.
it.
Actually-
That's okay. Do it when you come back, because we
Yeah.
have two people who need to step out at 7:30. We
Okay.
got two people who have 7:30 meetings, and we've been really hustling our little butts tonight so that we could get them there. So we're going to do that. I think you're in good shape. I hope that everything comes in. Just try to get it nice and clean so we can help you move along in the summer, so you can get the excavation done sooner rather than later.
That'd be
'Cause
nice.
it looks like it's going to be really pretty, and it's a nice amenity. Okay, thank
And it's
you.
going to be a lot of ADA improvements too, which is an added bonus.
Oh, yeah, and I thought that was interesting. You don't have to have ADA access for the pool, you can get to the pool area, but you don't have to ADA into the pool, right?
That's too complicated for me. I know there was a lot. I know there was a lot.
I
of
was
different
just,
discussions about
the Byram swimming pool is ADA all the way. You
That's
go
zero
in it, but it's a town facility. Okay,
I think there's actually some discussion about codes related to that from the architects, but again, we'll resolve that for the final.
all righty, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye. All righty. Okay, people, we got two things to do. We got Nick's minutes. And then we got the moratorium.
Oh, you got nothing else to do?
Well, let's get thee to
Well, I
it.
think you did enough tonight. But
All right, so that was.
I'm raring to go. This is like, now
Did
what do I do?
anybody write down what time we started that? It was about 6:45, maybe? No, it must have been longer. No, it was
Started what?
6:55. 6. I just was looking at how long each application took us tonight,
Okay.
getting ready for our process.
Okay, so
discussion.
we've got to do the moratorium and minutes. Great.
Yes,
I've got
and
three- I've
Barilak, you
got 3
just turned off
minutes.
your screen, but you got to come back, right? Yeah,
I
okay.
got 3 minutes. Let me do this real quick. So
Real
zoning
quick.
text amendments, PLPZ 2023-808. Request the P and Z staff to extend the time of a moratorium for a period of 3 months to finalize the proposed zoning text language, respond to community requests, and allow time for community input and make necessary changes before adoption of amended regulations concerning section 699, conversion to accessory housing. Motion to approve the request for extension noting the following: the additional extension of time to complete the draft text amendment will be on or before July 16th, 23.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Levy has seconded. Mr. Yeski, how do you vote?
Aye.
Barilak,
Aye.
McRae,
Aye.
Levy,
Aye.
Albin, yeah, aye. All right.
Minutes.
What?
Minutes.
Macri minutes.
As the minutes for the 3/2/21, 5/11/21, 6/8/21, and 7/7/21 public hearings have been distributed. Are there any corrections? Hearing no requested corrections to the minutes, therefore, motion to approve the minutes as distributed.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Levy has seconded. Mr. Yeski, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. McRae,
Aye.
Mr. Barilak,
Aye.
Albin is also aye, and with that, the motion passes 5-0. And we may
It's
now.
6:58.
Bianca's fault. That's why,
All right, guys. Everybody have a nice evening. Bob, good luck at your RTM thing. Dennis, are you going to the
Recollect, Bob.
BOE?
I'm going to tune in on virtually. Yeah, the news hasn't been very good. So
Could you want to give us a quick recap? Because I
Yes.
missed a lot of it. Tell us what happened.
I didn't see it all. I want to go to 7:30 to hear no, I was going back and forth.
Yeah.
But didn't sound like good news. And I'm hoping for them to summarize at 7:30.
Got it.
What is the issue?
The BET decided the budget today. Rumor had it that they were cutting a large amount of the budget. And so we were thinking they were going to cut the school's budget for CMS and Old Greenwich. And we have people on those committees and we were waiting to hear.
The
what
last I
happened.
heard,
And
the
we'll
last
hear
I heard
about
they were going back.
our commission.
What did you say, Mr. Levy?
Oh, and we'll hear about our commission as well, right?
What do you mean?
Well, there was an issue about cutting from the department, right?
Oh, no. It was just some extra money we had asked for because we wanted to hire a retired person to help us rewrite some regulations.
Oh,
So,
okay.
because it's cheaper than using a consultant to use one of our own.
Yeah.
Margarita, the last I heard, although I didn't hear the end, it was proposed to go back on Central Middle to the 67.5, plus some architectural up to 70. But then there was a whole debate and then I had to come back and vote. So I wasn't able to go back and forth so easily. But I'm hoping at 7:30, they're going to summarize it.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. I know the Old Greenwich people were very concerned. Okay, everybody, thank you for coming. We will see you if you can come to the energy narrative. No, next week.
Yeah, end of next week.
End of next week. And I will also send you advice about when we're meeting to discuss process. We're going to do it virtually, but we're then going to set up, I was thinking, why don't we have coffee in the office sooner than that so everybody can hang out for a while and meet all the
Okay,
new
well,
people.
Do we have a
Chag
date
Sameach
yet?
and
No, I got to get organized.
have
sorry.
a good Friday.
And happy Passover.
Pesach.
Chag Sameach.
Yeah, it's Pesach. Yeah. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.